Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting for the 8th of September, 2025. This is a recorded meeting as well. It's a hybrid meeting and it's recorded as well. Let's start with a roll call of board members. Joe Topham.
Here.
Nat Lowell.
Here.
Hillary Hedges-Rayport.
Present.
John Kitchener.
Here.
Alternate Stephen Welch.
Here.
Abby D. Molina.
Here.
And Howard Matz. Howard?
Oh, here I
Oh,
said.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Maybe that was it. Staff members Leslie Snell,
Here.
Meg Trudell,
Here.
William Sod,
Here.
Catherine Ansaro.
Here.
Great. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Nat, seconded by Joe. Nat.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Hillary.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
All right. First item on the agenda is public comment for items not listed on the agenda.
Good evening, Campbell Sutton. So I just had a couple of comments. One, I wanted to thank Billy for his synopsis in the public comment under the minutes, because I think it gave some idea of what I had said, and that if anyone had been interested, they could have reached out for better explanation. So I appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is, I'm not sure how to go about it, so that's why I'm making it a public comment. So I think it's 8 North Mill Street or 8 something street where Birdsong went in. It was a development that was done a number of years ago. And there had been discussion about the intersection of that road and Prospect Road.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
North
and
Mill.
so at the time, I believe the decision said that it would be a right-hand turn in and down only. We all know that's not the case. And as I've experienced it and gotten to thinking about it, and I did work in the area and I did take it the wrong way, so there. I really think it would be good if we went back to looking at that as the sign indicates as you go to that intersection, and it says that it's for pedestrian and bicycle or that would be those electric bikes as well. But just for like pathway access, because I think as long as it's open, even if it's just a right-hand turn, you're just creating more things for someone to have to keep track of. So I sort of wanted to bring that back to the table. I think that was a special permit development, maybe? No? So you can't bring it back? So would it then be like maybe an enforcement something?
Talk to Mike, maybe.
So
I'm
if anyone can just give me some guidance over the next few weeks,
Leslie?
that's
is it-
fine.
Okay, well,
No pressure. I just
perfect. We will get back to you on
wanted
it
to
for sure.
bring that up. So thank you,
It's a
everybody.
good call.
Have a good night.
Anybody else for public comment? Anyone online, Billy? Okay. No. Next item is election of officers.
I would second that.
Okay,
Doing a great job, Dave.
thank you. Doing my best. I appreciate it. I think I can manage one more year. Beyond that, I'm not sure. But motion made by Joe, seconded by Nat. Should I ask if there's anyone else that wants to nominate someone else before we go down this road? Any of, John, you good?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, thank you. Motion made by Joe, seconded by Nat. Joe? Nat?
Aye.
Hillary?
Aye.
John?
An enthusiastic aye.
And I'm an aye, and thank you, board members,
the
for
only-
your continued support. I appreciate it, and I will try to do my best by all of you.
Let's keep it simple.
Yep. Okay, we need a motion for a vice.
I will nominate Nat Lowell.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second,
All right, motion made by Joe, seconded by John. Joe,
Aye.
hold on, timeout. Would anyone like to nominate anyone else? I apologize. I shouldn't stop in the middle of this, but I don't want to skip this step. Okay, great. So I'm going to go back. Motion made by Joe, seconded by seconded by John. Joe,
Aye.
Aye.
Nat, John.
aye.
It'll be a long night, I'm telling you.
Hopefully not.
Hillary.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Congratulations, Nat.
Thank you very much.
Nat.
Great, okay. On to second dwellings. Would you like me to pull that out, or are you satisfied?
We skipped the minutes.
Oh, skipped, okay. See, I told you it's gonna be a long night. We're going to continue the minutes to next month. Do I need a motion on that stuff? So I'd accept a motion
I'll
on
make that
that.
motion to continue the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Hillary, seconded by Joe. Hillary?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, on to second dwellings. Hillary,
We have two more
We have
things.
announcements and
what,
discussion.
am I on
Sorry.
the wrong?
You got the here, Joe.
We
Matt.
have a master plan update, just an announcement, a status announcement, and then we have Tacoma Green. Wanna go with that?
I think you got the one from our,
No, there's been three of them, so I
Yeah, I was gonna
apologize.
say.
I apologize. So where are we at?
Leslie will give us an update, a status update on the timeline for the master plan.
Okay. Thank you, sorry about that.
All right, well, give me a second to pull it up. So Judy Barrett from Barrett Consulting provided a new master plan schedule that was requested by at least one member of the board and by staff because the scope has changed a little bit over time, and that is included in your packet. So if anyone has any
So
questions.
was that emailed around?
Just this morning.
Yeah, so I really haven't had a chance to look at that. Can you just summarize the net of it for us, Leslie?
Yeah, sure, just. So the schedule just has a breakdown of the individual tasks that have been completed, that are in the process of being completed. There's there's various tasks in here. It's really quite long. It's 3 or 4 pages. So it'd probably be better if you take a look at it, and then after you've had a chance to review it, we could discuss it even at the next meeting.
Yep, we can
And I
get it
haven't
back
had a
on the
chance to
agenda.
really give it a lot of review either at this point.
Yeah, I actually just found it. Billy sent it around. Could I just request that it gets posted to the meeting packet so people can find it? Oh, it's now in that?
Yeah,
Thank you very
it is.
much.
And we can put it on next month's agenda to,
Yeah, so we can, it's in today's meeting packet. We can also have it uploaded to the master plan website, so for those following along from there.
great.
Yeah, I'm just noticing that it's all kind of dependent, like there aren't, what I'm observing is that it doesn't have delivery dates. It has dates of things that have been delivered, and then it's structured based on Barrett Planning will do this within a certain amount of time from when they receive things from other people, which is a little unusual, but that's the way they've chosen to do it.
It's not a straight line, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, some actions depend on previous actions, that it's a little bit like herding cats.
It's definitely like herding cats, and, you know, as Ms. Raport said, a lot of what Barrett Consulting has to do is dependent on other people providing deliverables to them, and they're asking, you know, town staff and town boards to review work for the planning board in addition to whatever they have on their plate already. So sometimes those things don't move along as quickly as we would like, and don't stay on schedule as much as we would like for them to.
Yeah. So we'll have another chance to discuss this
We will,
master
we
plan,
will
yeah.
put it on the agenda for next
Great,
month, for sure.
thank you.
Okay. Next item is discussion of Tacoma Green.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
John Kitchener had his
Oh,
hand
I'm
up.
sorry, I didn't see you, John.
Okay, no problem. Just a quick point, Mr. Chair, on the schedule. When we do see it again, I understand what Leslie said about moving parts and people be depending on one another, but that's not unusual on a project plan. But normally, that has to, somebody has to put that into a hard Gantt chart with dates, and then if one of the dates gets missed, there is a discussion as to why did it get missed and can we pick up the time or can't we? And the way that chart that came around today is presented, you can't really do that. So I would just suggest that we, before we reissue it, we do try hard to put a firm timeline against it, and then we regularly review that, or staff regularly review that, and if we're missing some dates, figure out how we're going to pick up the time. Thank you.
Okay. I will meet with staff after this meeting and we'll do our best to try to accomplish that. And I will let the board know and we'll discuss it at the next meeting. Good? All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Back to Tacoma Green, special permit on-street parking requirements.
Sure. Can you pull up that parking plan? So the county commissioners are going to be reviewing a licensing agreement on September the 17th to complete this portion of the special permit decision, which contemplates the allowance of 32 parking spaces on Waite Drive. You do have to remember that when this decision was drafted, Waite Drive didn't exist. Amelia Drive was still privately, it was still a private road. So Waite Drive has been constructed. There are 51 current parking spaces right here, if you could zoom in on that. So what the intent is that there will be a license agreement to Tacoma Green to give 32 passes to utilize any of those 32 spaces on a first come, first served basis. There was some talk about giving exclusive use of a specific easement with assigned parking spot numbers. Internally, we debated that. That's not going to be how this moves forward. And I would urge you to not support that concept. But if you could support the parking pass concept so that this can move forward at the upcoming county commissioner meeting. And Tracy McDonald is here if you have any technical questions on the real estate documents.
Thank you, Meg. Board members?
I feel like I have to say something. 2017, a long time ago. And the housing project wasn't approved yet. Leslie, correct?
I'm sorry, what was
The
that?
housing project on Waite Drive wasn't,
To-
I don't even remember talking about that then. We were meeting above this built upstairs here for this.
Are you referring to Tacoma Green?
I'm referring to the project that's finished now on Waite Drive.
The dormitory?
Yes.
Yes,
And-
no, that was not contemplated then.
And so we just need to, I'm just nervous about like this coming back as like, everybody's forgotten. I like to kind of bring the past back to what happened.
Right.
Because the lawsuit part, related, COVID, and we had a pretty good plan here. And now it looks like, makes no sense in some ways for the parking part because there's cars everywhere over there. Parked the way they're supposed to be though. Because that was something that was just being discussed by DPW as far as I remember. I'm trying to like remember exactly how this got to there. And I know that it started out with angle parking and then we went to the perpendicular or whatever you call the straight back in kind. Yes, the Amelia Drive road taking really doesn't have any play in this because that's still the same. Doesn't matter whether the town has it or not, it's still irrelevant. The cut-through part, though, connecting is important. So I just want to make sure that when we have this discussion, when the select board has this discussion, that we don't forget how the last 8 years, nobody was talking about that dormitory housing then. Breaking up the buildings, yes, that whole thing was part of it, but as far as what's there right now, didn't exist,
Right.
so.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add, also, I don't think anyone anticipated the amount of public parking that would be needed at two fairgrounds. I mean, we'd always talked about the commuter lot, we talked about moving commercial cars out of the downtown to make more
Yeah.
room for businesses, but I think the demand for parking in that area was not anticipated to be the level that it is now. And so what we are asking for you to recommend is that the spaces that were mentioned in the decision issued by the planning board be supplied by parking passes and not through an exclusive use easement. So that way in the future, if that needs to be revisited, it can easily be done.
Yeah.
Whereas a permanent easement is a completely different issue and it's a county road. And it's our opinion that that would just be a bad practice.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
what would that look like in practice? Would there be a sign up that says these? Nope, it would just be first come, first serve. If you have a sticker, you can park there for as long as you want.
So there will
kind
be,
of
as I
situation.
understand it, because this does play into the overall parking plan for the area that Mike Burns has been working on with Chief Casper. There are 51 spaces. There will be 51 residential permits issued, 32 of which will be going to Tacoma Green. So those other remaining permits, they will not be issued just yet. There are other undeveloped uses that may come about on Waite Drive that may require the use of those additional parking spaces. It's just for the 32 that were contemplated in that special permit decision for Tacoma Green. So it's not gonna be like a free-for-all for parking that you have 100 people trying to park in 51 spaces. There
Yeah.
will only be 51 permits ultimately handed out for
So,
those
so there'll be
51
a sign that says
spaces.
permit only parking?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that makes a lot more sense. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to echo support to Megan that at this point, having assigned spots for a lot of reasons doesn't make any sense. So I think, the idea of, parking stickers is the right thing to do at this point anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Tracy?
Tracy McDonald, I'm the real estate manager for the town. I just want to fill you in on a little bit of other discussions that have been going on. The dorm has 11 internal spots on site with one handicap. Of the 51 spots that Megan's talking about, 4 are handicap. And these 32 will be by, what I understand is like a placard, like similar to handicap, where the residents will apply and be issued a placard with their license plate number on it, and then they can park in any of those available spaces within that section. And then Habitat has also waived the ability to park on Waite Drive. They have on-site and have contained that, and they have a HOA to contain that parking for enforcement. So they won't be utilizing that parking for permits. So I just wanted to let you know that the town is working on it and wants to work cohesively with you.
Great, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
So you're looking for a motion from us?
Yeah, just, I can draft a letter of support on behalf of the board for that meeting, for the county
Okay.
commissioners' consideration. So that's what I'm looking for a motion for.
And what are we calling those spaces? Not permit, but placard?
Like permit, it's permit parking. Yep.
Okay. Take a stab at this. I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board that we,
County Commissioner.
or the county commissioners, excuse me, to implement the placard new policy that's been adopted, or been, not adopted, but,
To satisfy the
Decided.
planning board
yeah,
conditions.
to satisfy our conditions from the original decision. Is that good?
I'll second that.
All right, motion made by Nat, seconded by Hillary. Nat?
Aye.
Hillary?
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well, so that's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, can I just, before this goes away, I just want to say about this, this is going to be, there was a lot of discussion about residents, some of them not having cars. During that whole process, like it was not, this is a little bit different kind of housing. There's going to be people there that may not have a car. And I think that this is going to kind of fix itself, or at least adjust itself over, a couple of years of it being up and running. So I just don't want this to turn into some kind of, overreaction. I think this is just management of space that we didn't realize was, the future was coming before the decision that we made first, because that's what's happened. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Right, great, thank you. So we are on to second dwellings. Hillary, do you want to pull out Pop, or do you just?
Yeah, I actually have two that I'd like to pull out, 170 Cliff Road and 3 Pops Lane.
Okay. All right, so we're going to vote on the remaining 3 and the garage apartment all in one. So that would be CBM Pulpus Trust, 275 Pulpus Road, ACT Local Management LLC, 46 Hooper Farm Road, William P. Horhan Jr., 2016 Trust, 16 Hawthorne Lane, and Stephen W. and Susan C. Burbidge at 47 Quidnet Road. I would entertain a motion on those, please.
Motion to approve those 4.
Second.
Great. Motion made by Nat, seconded by Joe. Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well.
There's a hand up online.
Oh,
That was from the previous item, and
Oh,
it
we
was not
weren't
a-
taking public
It was not
comment,
a
so
public hearing item,
who
so we
was
weren't
it?
taking public comment. Meg Rulli.
okay. Meg, I apologize, but we were not taking public comment on that item. Okay, so let's start with 170 Cliff Road. Hillary.
Yeah, so Billy, is it possible to pull it up? Thank you so much. So I had a question that I wanted to have comment from my fellow board members on about the access to this proposed dwelling. So as you can see, it's going to be a 3-bedroom house on the other side of the primary dwelling. That doesn't have a driveway anywhere near it on the property. It's on the other side of a pool, and there's wetland and dense, well, I mean, there's a lot of vegetation, who knows what it'll look like at the end. But I had a question as to whether, to me, this did not look like adequate access, but I wanted to have some discussion and feedback about what everybody else thought about whether or not there was adequate access to this 3-bedroom house. As you can see, the secondary dwelling used to be right on the driveway, and of the applications that I've looked at in this packet and prior packets, it's typically near driveway.
It's my at least personal feeling and understanding of this is it's the access at the street level that we're looking at here, and it's the owner's choice as to whether they want to walk 5 miles to their guest house or not.
So it's not a safety issue, or access for emergency vehicles.
Well, that's just a width. It's not really so much a footpath or anything like that. So as long as they have some fire truck or ambulance, if it had to go back to get someone, they could go around that building. So they have plenty of access. So to me, it was also, if it's guests, if they come to the main house and they're on the pool deck, but this looks more like a cabana that would have a, based on the design, I don't know the design, but it looks like it's just a cabana that would be a secondary dwelling that would be used by family or friends. But then again, I think that, it's pretty typical for Nantucket 8 to see driveways all around this property and having more disturbance that would go into the wetland, as far as like gravel or sand or dust. So I'm fine with this design.
That-
They do, but they're limited by the
sorry.
septic.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, for me, I think it's an owner's choice, and I don't think we're in the business of telling them to put driveways all over their property. And I understand your point, safety-wise, but I actually prefer them not to, like Joe said, to have more driveway on that property.
Yeah, I would suggest maybe they locate the second dwelling in a different location the way they had before with the dwelling on driveway. But I just wanted to raise it because it struck me as, what is the definition of adequate access? And does this really offer adequate access given that it's so far away? But if the definition is really just their preference and has nothing to do with an emergency vehicle being able to pull up, that's not for me to have a different opinion
I
about.
would defer to staff on what the definition of access is that is in our purview. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I actually have that section of the bylaw pulled up. So it says the planning board shall make a determination regarding the adequacy of access to the lot and the structures.
So there's that, yeah, no,
You know,
That
for you
didn't give
to
me a lot of
determine, but
guidance, so.
yeah.
Typically, the planning board has approved second dwellings that do require some walking.
Yeah.
It's not atypical at all.
Okay,
Washing Pond Road is one.
I think there's numbers, and I appreciate what Hillary's point is, but I think that, I mean, I rather see less roads on properties. And if they choose to make it a struggle for the firemen or rescue, that's problematic, but I don't think it justifies making them disturb more of the area, especially with this one with an existing wetland very close by, so.
Two wetlands.
Two wetlands.
right. Well, they could, I don't disagree. It's not an issue of building more driveway. It's an issue of having the building in a different location or having the existing building. But anyway, it's fine. We can go ahead and vote it. Thank you for the discussion.
Yep. Anyone online?
No,
John, good? No,
Good.
John?
I'm good.
So I'd entertain a motion on CBM, I'm sorry, on Nancy Breckenridge 170 Cliff Road.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion made by Joe, seconded by Nat. Joe?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
Hillary?
aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so that's unanimous. Okay, on to Pops Lane Holding Trust, 3 Pops Lane. Hillary?
Yeah, so I did so this is one that I looked at, I didn't understand why we didn't have a stamped surveyed plan, given that the property had been surveyed. They're not obligated, I guess, to provide a stamped plan, and they chose not to. I did pull the building file and compared this to the stamp plan, and I could not be confident that what I was looking at was actually how something could be built on this lot. So I am not going to vote on this, but if you guys want to go ahead and vote on it, that's fine. I just wanted to explain why I wasn't going to vote on it. And I'll work with our staff to see if we might consider a requirement that we have stamp plans for these, because what happens is when we approve things and we're not really sure if it reflects what's really on the ground, then it makes it harder for other boards, because, oh, well, the planning board approved it like this. And, I do hear that all the time, and I also see mistakes. So I didn't feel that this, I could be wrong, but I can't vote on something unless I can be sure that I understand what I'm voting on.
I respect that.
So can I just, Hillary, I had the same issue with this. And I was hoping, as I zoomed in, I was hoping it was going to be like a patio. But what I think we probably should do through staff is, alert Marcus Silverstein and Paul Murphy that, I don't think this meets the definition, but I haven't seen the architecturals other than this one plan. But it is kind of his ruling why he would allow that to go in the setback, that deck. So I just think if we can alert him, make sure that it passes his, or if not, they'll have to go back to the HCC and get that amended and come back to us. So.
Okay, great. So are you suggesting we don't vote on this, or?
No, I think we just write a letter to Paul and Marcus Silverstein and say, we feel like this could be a problem. Right now, it's not, it's part of our purview, but not really like a strong point. But I think that's definitely something that should be addressed.
Okay,
So
so,
I don't want to hold up the application if it's,
so we should, so maybe a note in the, in the decision or in the motion that suggests a letter to
yes.
Paul on the zoning.
Yeah, this is about the secondary dwelling and not,
Do you want to just include some language in your approval letter about the deck? Is that what we're talking about, the deck that's shown in the setback?
Yeah, that we're concerned that it's in the setback.
And there's also on the plot plan in the building file, there's
plenty
a
of land.
septic system right where the parking is.
Leach field can be, in the parking house, I believe.
Each field can be in the park.
Can the leach field be there, Joe? Yes.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I
but yes.
wouldn't do it, but if
Wouldn't
you
do
want to
that.
keep, it might be all they have
Yeah.
to put it in.
Considering the wetlands as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, in the plot plan, there's about 20 feet from the edge of the garage shown in the dash line that's been removed to the edge of the property. And in this plan, it shows that within 10 feet, they're going to put that walkway area and a secondary dwelling. So it just didn't add up. I didn't understand it. That was my
The
observation.
secondary dwelling isn't close to the setback
In the surveyed line, it's,
in the surveyed.
in the surveyed plan, it doesn't tie out to this, in my opinion. But that's
Okay.
why I just brought it up and said I couldn't vote on it because I couldn't understand what I was looking at.
All right,
Hillary's
no-
suggesting that the scale with the existing structure does not align with what's proposed there. But my recommendation would be that that would be captured during the building permit reviews
Yeah,
stage.
no, okay, but okay, so,
Some kind of note that just mentions that in the decision or in the
yeah,
approval.
you want to make the motion now?
Thanks.
Well, let's let Joe make the motion.
Joe's the
Let's
architect.
put Joe on the spot here. Get back over here.
No, this used to happen with Joe Markinger a lot, Leslie, as you recall.
What happened?
No, I
Used
think
to
that we
bring up
should,
Stuff like this once in a while.
I think we should alert the building inspector and the zoning enforcement officer that to the west of the main house, proposed dwelling, that there's a deck that encroaches the side yard setback or rear setback, and that should be addressed and reviewed with the architect of record. That would be my recommendation.
I'll
Approve
second
it
that.
with those recommendations.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, all right. Are we, you
And
clear on
then
that motion?
Second that with Joe's suggestions.
Okay, great. So
Yeah.
motion made by Joe, seconded by Nat. Joe,
Aye.
Nat.
All right.
Hillary, you gonna abstain?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All right. On to the A and Rs. Would anyone like to pull any of the three A and Rs, or are we all comfortable with those?
No problem.
Okay, so we've got 4 Dukes Realty LLC, 4 and 6 Dukes Road. We've got John Murray, 73 and 75 Fairgrounds Road, and we got John D. Monero, trustee at 15 Maury Lane.
No,
I don't
no.
think so.
just the
No,
top
that
two.
one.
Maury
Oh,
was
that
withdrawn,
got-
that'll be resubmitted.
Okay, so just the first 2, Maury Lane is out.
Make a motion to endorse 4 Dukes Road and 73 and 75 Fairgrounds.
Second.
Motion made by Nat, seconded by Joe. Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay, on to previous plans. We have Wiggles Way, 31 Fairgrounds Road.
So the applicant is requesting that a large remaining balance from the performance surety is released back to them. There's just a small handful of punch list items left to be completed. Those include fixing the curbing where the sidewalk was installed to make it handicap accessible, pumping of the catch basins, and supplying a final as-built plan. But all of the other items have been completed and inspected, so we recommend releasing those funds back to the applicant.
All right. Questions from board members?
Make a motion to approve the release of escrow with the findings from staff?
I think just the
release?
final amount to be determined
Okay,
by
Partial
staff.
release.
Partial release from
Yep,
staff.
partial release.
Okay.
Second,
Motion made by Nat, seconded by John. Nat,
Aye.
John,
aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All righty. We're on to Sandpiper Place 1 and 2 Meadows. Boy, it is.
This is also a request for a partial performance surety release. The applicant has completed a lot of paving, curbing installation, sidewalk installation. So we're still determining between myself, Pesci Engineering, and the applicant, the exact final amount. But if you would authorize the partial release back to them to complete those items.
Thank you. Board members, motion?
I make a motion to authorize the partial release of escrow.
Second.
Motion made by Joe, seconded by Nat. Joe?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
Hillary?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Mid-Island LLC, AC Offices LLC, 18/8/2022, 24/26 Sparks Ave. Mr. Malloy.
Afternoon, Dan Malloy for the applicant. So this is Sparks Ave project on Sparks Ave. Very simple modification request. Only a few things on there. We've updated the site plan, nothing I'd have to point at it specifically, probably for you to point, even see some of these changes, but the plans have been slightly updated just to do with the final building plans. The biggest site change, which you might be able to notice if you compared plans, we got some feedback from the accessibility committee on the island. They asked us to change some of the locations of the handicapped accessible spaces, so we did that. From a site plan standpoint, that's the only meaningful change. Plan itself is the same, number of parking spaces is the same, it's just a question of moving a few spaces from one place to another, more to align with what the final plans look like for building access. Some of the other changes in the set, minor updates to some utilities. Some of these things, I think we would have just handled in the field in an as-built situation, but since we were coming for some of these other ads, we just put them in there. So utility reconfigurations, some handicap parking space relocations. And the only thing in here of any real substance, about a year ago, we were back in front of the board for a minor modification to do with basement storage. And somewhere in the midst of that whole process, we all missed that part of the request, and it was in the public hearing, I think, but we never actually got it into the wording of the approval. So we're just asking that the wording be clarified to allow, as staff put in here, ancillary storage, no habitable space in the basement space of the buildings. That's the application.
Thank you, Dan. Questions?
No, but I'm glad you brought up the basement again, because I can't remember if it was conversation you and I had offline, or it was in this meeting, but I'm glad you brought this up to clarify that, because,
We were going through the building permit process, and nobody's questioned it, but we're trying to cover this before it becomes a question.
good.
Makes sense. John, good?
His hand's not up.
Okay. I guess I would entertain a motion. Do we have to find this as a minor modification, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And is that a separate vote? I can't even. Two separate votes, okay. So I'd entertain a motion as to it being
Make
a minor modification.
It's one vote. You would just add the finding, it's not in the
Okay.
staff report, that it's minor in nature, not requiring a public hearing. It doesn't materially
Yep.
affect the decision that you previously made.
Okay.
Motion to approve Mid-Ac Island LLC with findings and conditions spelled out by the planning board staff.
Second.
All right, motion made by Joe, seconded by Nat. Joe?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
Hillary?
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dan. Okay, on to public hearings. First is Klaus Kleinfeld at 13 Hawk Circle has requested a withdrawal without prejudice. I'd entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, I'm going to give that to Joe. Motion made by Hillary, seconded by Joe. Hillary,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Second one is Maryland Homeowners Association, 9 Korea Lane. Request to be continued to October 20th, 2025.
Motion to continue?
Yep, second.
Motion made by Joe, seconded by Nat. Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well, so that's unanimous as well. So we're continuing Nantucket Cottage Hospital,
Yeah,
correct?
Mr. Chair,
I'm
so there were
sorry.
2 additional continuances that you'll need to vote on. There
Okay.
was Nantucket Cottage Hospital at 16 and 18 Vesper Lane.
Until the 20th as well, correct?
Yes, and then Cliffside Beach Club, 46 Jefferson Ave is also,
So-
is to October 20th.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion for both of those, the Nantucket Cottage Hospital as owner of 16 and 18 Vesper Lane, and then,
Galley.
yeah, where, Cliffside,
Cliffside.
46 Jefferson Ave.
Yeah.
Both to be continued to October 20th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by John, seconded by Nat. John,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All right. Okay, we are on to Schlott LLC, 18A Greglen Ave. Is Tom Craddock online?
No, I don't see him online.
Meg, you?
I wouldn't, I mean, I feel comfortable enough. I
Okay.
could probably present this to the
Great.
board on his behalf.
Thank you.
This is part of this is another one of a cleanup with the unpermitted storage containers. The 18A Greglen Ave is in the
C-Tech.
C-Tech, there we go. And you can see they have the existing container up towards the front. There is they have a fence on the street. He provided an on-site photo from on-site. So when I went over there, it basically looks like this from the street. One of the conditions I had in there for the board to take a look at was no storage on top of the containers. I think that defeats the purpose of the storage container.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
I want you to know why, though. Because this is a housekeeping situation over here. And we can't make it be like a brand-new project that never had anything. But we have to find a way to make it not be just permitted like everything exactly the same either. A little bit of improvement. That's a good point that you're bringing up, especially if there's no screening, and you certainly don't want to be creating, 15-foot screening, or whatever. So it's a good point, because there's going to be more of these over there. So,
I had one question, which was when we last discussed this sort of a cleanup, we wanted a time limit on it, and I wondered if we wanted to talk about the same thing for this application.
This also, so this is C-Tech, and I think this is a better, these two lots operate fairly similarly, I think. There's landscapers on this lot, and I believe I don't know if there's any containers on that lot or if they're coming in. I think this whole area is sort of designed to contain these to support business activity. And the current applicant, I think it's excavation is what he's in, so, the storage there, because for the most part, it's an outdoor lot pit, if you will, but a little nicer version than what used to be over in that area.
yeah.
I mean, it's a very commercial area.
And this is sort of like the little bit that's left from the past. Has to be just cleaned up, but we gotta keep them in business at the same time, so.
Yeah, I mean, and
There's
it
no
looks
place to
way
go
better
for
than
these things.
other parts of this neighborhood.
No,
so
it does.
It does.
is, yeah.
I did, maybe to help with your question, Hillary, I did have a condition in there that the storage container was to be for the current owner's business. If this changes hands, it should come back before the board to
Yeah,
discuss.
And I noticed you also said if the business changes.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
And I think
I mean, the type of business.
Yeah.
It's an excavating business if that changes.
Yeah.
in this, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And Mr. Chair, I think one important distinction from the other application at the last meeting, this is a heavily commercial area in the back, and the other lot was in the front. It was very visible from Old South Road. It was intended to be temporary, so I think in that case, having a time limit made a lot of sense. But in this one, I think that's not as important.
No, I agree. I think if it's in a residential area, I think a time limit is very important, but I think this is certainly, many businesses are based in this area, so I'm more comfortable with it. Anybody in the public?
Hi, excuse me, Campbell Sutton. So I think my only comment is that right now they only have the one storage container, but I think if they come back for more, which they well may, I think there should be something in there about them all being the same color. I think that's something that we've had in other applications. So
Ones
that
in the
was my
coffin
only
pit.
comment.
I completely agree, and we're going to get into that on another application later, I think, so. Yeah, thank you. Anyone?
No hands are up
Okay,
online.
I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public comment.
Second,
Motion made by Joe, seconded by Nat. Joe?
Aye.
Nat?
aye.
Hillary?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. As to the merits,
Motion to approve per staff recommendations, 5.
Second.
Did you want to add the comment about?
Oh, the
color?
comment about any additional, you want to make that number 6? Or are we going to do some sort of a standard or just do it
oh
individual?
wait, this is one for one container, so if they,
Any additional, they'll have to come back before you anyway.
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and no storage on top.
I've got, that's already there.
Okay.
Can we add one more thing? If the storage container is in the front yard setback, it needs to be moved out of the setback.
Wow.
Oh, good point.
Does anyone even know what that is over there?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
This applicant knows that stuff.
He does.
Okay.
so motion made by Nat, did I have a second? Seconded by Joe. Nat?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Hillary?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. All righty. Okay, next is John Murray, 75 Fairgrounds Road. Welcome back, Dan.
Good evening again, Dan Malloy for the applicant, John Murray. So I, very simple request, depending on how the board wants to consider it. The permit for, the rear lot special permit for this lot specifies, so Lot D, you're seeing there, there's a house under construction there right now, if anybody's driven by. So the special permit stipulates that Lot D can have 2 dwellings, but only 1 structure. And there's no differentiation in structure, so that means they can't have anything other than basically the single dwelling. So the applicant is developing the lot as a single-family dwelling. We're not proposing any additional dwellings. I don't want to try to wrestle with that issue. Looking to do is put an outbuilding in, preferably a small pool cabana up to a couple hundred square feet. And if that's not allowable, at least a storage shed, some type of outdoor structure. It can be small. I mean, this possibly reducing the size could refrain it from becoming a so-called structure. That's, I mean, a dwelling, I should say. It's certainly not our intent to have. We're trying to find a way to get to the point where we could put up an outbuilding without it becoming something which no one wants it to become.
Yeah.
That's what we're asking for. It's a question of if you're willing to entertain it, and then if so, defining what that might be.
Thanks. Great. Board members? Joe, how big's a zoning shed?
200 square feet.
So I think there's a really big difference between saying we want to remove the restriction that there can only be one structure and we want to put a 200 square foot shed. I think if you came back and said, we want to put a 200 square foot shed to, keep our dinghy or surfboards or whatever, and that would be a really different conversation. But what you're asking for, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm directing that to staff, is that they're asking to remove the restriction that it be limited to one structure. And I just don't see how this board can go and basically undo something that was negotiated years ago with good reason by a previous board, and then we have people all around who made decisions about what they want to own and where they want to be, based on this one structure restriction, and without any, real specifics or without any reason other than the owner wants to maybe have a cabana or whatever. I don't see how that didn't make a lot of sense to me as something that would be convincing for me personally.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I don't specifically recall the conversation when this application was approved, but I think you could certainly change the condition to allow an accessory structure, as in a shed or a cabana, without removing the restriction and still be within the scope of the application and the public notice.
Meg?
And I might also add that subject to ground cover, the by right ADU will be allowed to be constructed here, whether the decision reflects that or not. So just keep that in
We
mind.
need to keep
Bring
bringing that up.
up.
It's important.
I can't, obviously, apparent with the regulations, I can't restrict an ADU.
Yeah,
What I can tell you is based on how the property is being built today, right now, there is no place to put an ADU.
Yeah.
Unless it was inside the dwelling itself,
Right, but-
which the board has already allowed. We don't want that ability, but I don't know that you can take it away necessarily.
no, we can't, yeah.
And there can already, excuse me, but it's already allowed to have two dwelling units. It's just can only be in one structure,
Correct.
right? So there can be an ADU. We're not restricting the ADU. It's just the ADU has to dimensionally fit on the lot, which is part of the state law about ADUs.
I mean, I think we can, and to staff, I mean, we can allow him to have a zoning shed without taking away the restriction. Correct? We don't have to say that the restriction's waived. We can say you're now allowed, and that would be in harmony with the decision.
Yeah, you absolutely could do
right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John?
No, I think what we just said would be the right way to go, to not remove the restriction, but allow it as a zoning shed.
Okay, let's go to the public real quick, and then we can come back to the board. Is there anyone in the public that like to comment on this application?
Yeah. Yeah, zip it.
Hi, Campbell Sutton again. So I would just like to agree, I think anything 200 square feet is within his right, to do that without removing the restriction. I was just sort of wondering, like, what square footage size, what were you looking for? If the 200 square foot didn't work for you, were you thinking something larger than that, 350, 400 or something, or did you not have an idea?
We didn't ask for something, but 200 square feet is more than, even if it was restricted to a structure with a maximum size of 200 square feet or gross floor area of 200. We're not looking to build anything massive here. 200 square feet is certainly sufficient.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? More than 200 square feet, so I think that a zoning shed will solve this, and without removing any restrictions, and we're in the same place, and it's in the spirit of the city, right? If there's no one else in the public, we're good. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by John, seconded by Joe. John?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Nat? Hillary?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. As to the merits,
Does anybody have any more information about why this restriction was put in place in the first place? I mean, I did look at the minutes, and it just says we just put this restriction in.
I would say typically, go
I
ahead.
also, I could not locate a YouTube video for this one meeting in 2018. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if Nat swore during the meeting or something, but it's been removed from YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it's an aside note, but it does, we really can't, like, the minutes are the official record, so if there's stuff we need to know, it's got to be in the minutes, otherwise we're just, like, driving
Well,
blind.
I mean, I think that we've done this on
No, of course not,
many,
but the
many rear lots,
justification
we
for putting it.
restrict to dwellings and structures. I think it's because we felt that it was going to overburden the lot if we allowed more. Typically, that's what happens.
Just as a quick point of order, during the discussions, this was a 4-lot subdivision, right? And so the build-outs were on the whole property, and so this was restricted to what it was restricted to reduce, to build out and the use of the road and everything else in 2018.
All right, so
I don't remember
what would the
this
board like to do
very
here?
closely.
I would like to see a specific request for what exactly, and have it shown on the lot. Because I mean, a structure that's 10 by 20, I mean, I don't know, it's just not, I think if you're going to ask for us to undo something, it's my opinion, if you're going to ask us to undo something that a prior board did in conjunction with a complicated subdivision that added a lot of intensity of use to an area, and they were trying to limit it, and you want to reverse it, I think we need a more specific request to honor that prior decision. That's my opinion.
I feel that a zoning shed is inconsequential, to be honest with you. I think I don't think I don't think there's a lot of danger in granting someone a zoning shed. And I hear what you're saying, Hillary, but if it was something more substantial than that, I would agree. But I think a zoning shed is a zoning shed. I mean, you don't have to permit them for a reason because they're inconsequential.
Yeah, and I agree. There's the usefulness of them is pretty important to, maybe they don't want to have a garage, or they don't want to have parking that comes all the way in the rear or something, or, maybe they don't want to have a house. The HCC doesn't want to go to, lot line to lot line for the structure. So, it's kind of very useful to Nantucket, and that's why we're permitting them and not having more than 200 square feet, is because they take the place of a garage, and just the storage throughout a winter is invaluable to a homeowner. I mean, right next door, there is a shed, and there's a couple around the neighborhood, but they are so small and mute, they're probably 12 feet tall. They're really not that tall, so I think there would be a story and a half in front of this. I think you're gonna drive by and not even see it. So, right now, they're permitted to have, I think it's 2,500 square foot on the ground, based on the zoning, right? So, yeah, 25%. So I just feel like a zoning shed will probably get squeezed in the back there, tucked up and away, but it's gonna be very useful to this future homeowner. It's my opinion.
I wish I could remember exactly what happened in 2018, again, like I did the other one. I just don't remember. I just know that there was a lot of wasn't there a piece of land in the front that was unusable? or
Still
Yeah,
something?
it's
still
for the
is,
benefit
still
of
is,
the
yeah.
lot.
There are different
There's lots
easements
of little
restrictions
stuff,
that
yeah.
most of them, some of them getting lifted, but there was still a restriction in place to do with access easements and
Yeah.
things and different, for different lot owners.
I mean, I agree with Dave as far as restricting something that's sort of allowed automatically is kind of an odd thing to do for a shed. I mean, I realize that that's not necessarily what's happening, and I do understand what Hillary's question is about as well. It's just, I don't want to say the precedent, but like, okay, this, whatever we said that day, that night, I can't remember the reason why, Dan. I mean, that's a while ago.
I wasn't here originally for the permit,
I
so
just
I don't know either.
I don't know why we said this. I don't know. But we said a lot of things that were not necessarily the right thing at one time or another. So I look at it differently now, but at the time, I don't remember why we said that.
But I think 71 Fairgrounds is successful. It's a single story.
Yeah.
Or a story and a half.
That was the
I think
first
it's-
one.
Works really well, and I kind of see why you guys did it. Reading and not, like you said, we don't have the paperwork or anything to back it up, but I think that decision's solid, like.
Yeah.
Have a single structure, if it's two dwellings or something, say on the backside, you have, father-in-law, mother-in-law, little room on the back. I think that makes sense, but I think for the streetscape, I think this was really wise to have one unit.
Yeah, no,
That's, and I don't think that shed is gonna have any impact or really diminish anything within this neighborhood, which I think is most important. So I just don't have a problem with this.
So you're proposing, just to clarify what you're proposing, if that's okay. So you're proposing that it's okay to have a shed, which is for storage purposes, not designed to be served by heat or plumbing, and not to be used for habitation.
Correct.
Exactly.
That's a
Yeah.
zoning shed.
And
That's
that
right.
it would not be taller than 16 feet in height. And
Well, it's-
according to our ground cover regulation, sheds, plural, may not exceed 200 square feet in total. So we would be stipulating that there could only be one.
Correct.
Yes.
And it's not a 16-foot height, it's a 1-to-1, 1 to 1.5. So whatever the width is, then 1.5, that's the height. So it could be if they made it wider, then it comes down. So the proportionate ratio, and of course, it's got to be ACC approved. So if it's too vertical, it's going to come down, but most that I see are 12 to 13 feet tall. And I'm sure Unlimited Structures or whatever Kim Garaki's company's called, that they're doing the same thing. They want to get it down the road and quick and easy, so that's what I think we would see.
Thank you.
Of course. All good. So I'd entertain a motion. What's the board say? I did close.
I'll make that motion that so we're saying that we are not waiving the restriction of it being a single structure, but we are giving, is it a special permit or?
I'd say a modification to the special
modification.
permit or even a
Original.
clarification to the decision.
Okay, a clarification that a shed for storage purposes, not served by heat or plumbing, not to be used for habitation,
Not to exceed 200 square
may
feet.
be constructed pursuant to the ground cover regulation. However, it's limited to a single structure, a single shed,
Single zoning shed,
a single shed.
Yep.
add zoning. A single zoning
Zoning.
shed. That's its
That's the
mechanism to keep that, so no
Size.
plumbing, no water, no.
Yeah.
That's what you really want to keep
Okay,
in place.
a single
Zoning
zoning
shed.
shed.
Perfect.
Second,
Motion made by Hillary, seconded by Joe. Hillary,
Aye.
Joe,
aye.
Nat,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is Nobac LLC 2 Novadier Way, Stephen Cohen.
He's online. I'm just trying to,
Okay, great.
he's coming over.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Stephen. Good to hear your voice.
Thank you, appreciate it.
The floor is yours.
Okay, so this property used to have a 750 square foot second dwelling and a 1,120 square foot main dwelling. My client knocked down the main dwelling and replaced it with a primary dwelling with an attached tertiary dwelling. That building is 1,144 square feet. So what they want to do now is add a 247 square foot addition to the 750 square foot single family dwelling. Single bedroom cottage, second dwelling, so that they can make it a 2-bedroom cottage. So the problem with doing that is it puts the ground cover about 120 feet over the allowed ground cover, not under zoning, but under the 20% differential rule. So we're asking for a waiver from the 20% differential rule so that we can add a small addition to add a second bedroom to that cottage. And then also, in general, we're asking you to recognize the 1,100 and whatever it is square feet of the tertiary, of the primary with the attached tertiary as the ground cover for that building. Because in reality, if you look at it, it's just one single building. So those are the two things, recognizing the ground cover of that building as the primary dwelling, and then adding the allowable ground cover, requested ground cover to the second dwelling.
Great, thank you.
And then just, not that it's part of the application, but this is all year-round rental housing.
Great, thank you. Board members. Not sure I've ever seen an attached tertiary.
Well, you saw it when you approved it, Dave.
This has got a freeze on the R10 limited, right?
The tertiary,
No, I'm sorry.
It had a perimeter plan filed under R20, which allowed them, to move forward with the
When we
tertiary
changed, because
dwelling.
it's a little confusing what we did over there with the zoning,
Yep,
but they currently have the R10 ground cover though.
the R10.
Correct, that's correct,
That's
Matt.
correct.
I was gonna
And
say, they have to.
in the
Okay.
definition of tertiary dwelling, one of the criteria is a dwelling unit attached to or within a single-family dwelling duplex or an outbuilding, or a dwelling unit attached to a studio or shed, so on and so forth. So that is one of the options. You can have a
Yeah.
detached, a garage apartment, or an attached tertiary dwelling.
so in this case, this,
Where the girls go,
in
housing,
the larger building, Stephen,
Yeah.
where the primary, it says it's a tertiary, but it was permitted as an ADU, right?
No, it's a primary with an attached tertiary, and this is one of the few lots that actually has an approved ADU separate that we're not applying for here, but already have separate permission for. This was that was approved, permitted before the rules change.
So which building is the approved ADU?
None of these.
So where will the approved ADU be?
Where it says lot 12 in that space there.
So there'll be a new building constructed here.
Not as part of this application, but yes. So this property will offer 4 sets or 4 houses or 4 dwellings for year-round housing.
So when I was researching the ADU law prior to annual town meeting, I did review the building permit for this. And what I found was that this board had approved the tertiary subject to a year-round restriction since it's not an owner-occupied lot. And
Yes.
that they built the new building, but they permitted it as a primary residence with an attached studio. And then they did not put the year-round restriction on it because it was a studio, obviously, and you don't need planning board approval to build that. And then they applied for the ADU
Yeah, that was actually done. So the studio will be converted to the tertiary dwelling. And then the year-round restriction will go on at that time, if it hasn't already. I think we have that in my office. I don't know if we recorded it. And the reason it was done that way was to allow for the primary dwelling that was there to be maintained without before the other building was built. In other words, in order to issue the building permit, we would have had to demo the existing house months and months before we were actually ready to go build the other one. And in order to maintain the year-round tenant that was in there with kids in school, we pulled this little kind of permitting trick to allow the building to stand up longer. But it's been demolished since then. Does that make
So
sense?
what's shown as the tertiary, you're saying in the future, you're going to come back and permit it as a tertiary and put the year-round restriction on it at that time?
Well, it's been permitted as a tertiary at the planning board level, but we're going to go amend the building permit to conform with the planning board permit. Yes.
And then you'll put the year-round restriction on when you exchange the letter we gave you for the building permit?
That's correct. When we amend the planning board permit to turn that studio into a tertiary dwelling, it will require at that time recording the year-round deed restriction. Correct.
And then you'll come forward with a plan to construct a new freestanding dwelling, which will be an ADU. So we'll
Correct.
have, if we permit the extension to the secondary dwelling, then that will go from 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms.
No, the secondary dwelling is 1 and it'll go to 2.
I have a floor plan that shows 3 bedrooms.
That's 3? Okay, I'm sorry. Then 3.
And then then we'll have the primary and tertiary, and then we'll have a 4th dwelling, which will be the ADU.
Correct. And again, all of it is year-round housing, rental.
Board members, other board members?
But again, the only thing in front of you today is a 247 square foot addition to the secondary dwelling, which is allowed under zoning ground cover, but not allowed under the 20% rule by about 120 feet.
Stephen,
Yes.
would the applicant be willing to put a year-round restriction on that structure as well?
Yes, absolutely.
That sign machine's on overload.
I know.
If the board is good for now, I'm gonna reach out to the public.
Okay.
Anyone in the public like to speak to this application? Anybody online, Billy?
No hands are raised
Okay,
online.
I'm gonna leave it open for a sec.
I mean, I have a copy of the building permit for the tertiary, so we should have the deed restriction in place for the tertiary.
It should be in place for the tertiary when they build the building, when they pull the building permit, correct?
Well, they got the permit to permit it for tertiary, and then they built it as a studio with the zoning trick that Stephen explained. And then they came back to us and asked for it to be a tertiary, and then they got a building permit, but it's not clear that there's a deed restriction in place.
Yeah, it might be that the deed restriction doesn't actually have to be recorded till you apply for a CO, but regardless, I would be happy to record it basically immediately.
Okay, yeah, because I would suggest that if this does get approval, that would be one of the conditions of the approval, that
Yeah, that we have the deed
on the
restriction recorded
tertiary,
on both.
and I would suggest we do it on this one as well.
Okay,
Doing all this work, can we get those sheds out of the zoning setbacks?
yeah. I just got a text telling me that the deed restriction was recorded, so we can pull a copy of that and send it to staff.
That would be great. Tracy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to ask how the deed restriction would be enforced.
So the deed restriction would be enforced like any other type of zoning condition. So it would be through zoning enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
Also, the deed restriction is on record. I just found it. It was recorded on April 7th of
Okay.
2025.
Great.
Thank you. You're welcome.
One thing off your list, Stephen.
Great. And so we would agree to record a new one related to the secondary dwelling that would be increasing in size with the same terms and conditions that are applicable.
Great. Campbell?
Hi, Campbell Sutton. So I've been looking at this. I've found this to be very confusing, so I haven't commented because it's very confusing. So this one-story secondary dwelling looks like a portion of it eats up the rear lot, the rear setback.
Yeah, it predates
That's
that setback.
Okay, we can do that? Or was that like a pre-existing condition
Pre-existing
before
conformity.
zoning happened?
It's pre-existing the change in the setback, yes.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks. I was pretty confused. Thank you.
So there was a question from our chair about, you asked,
An additional.
An additional
yeah, he agreed
restriction.
that he would be
and
willing
he
to
said
do that.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the public before we? No one?
No
Okay.
hands are up.
Anyone in the room? Yeah, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by John, seconded by Nat. John?
Aye.
Nat? Hillary?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. As to the merits.
Go ahead.
I'm just, all I can think of is the state right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't, like,
It's a catch-22
in all
for us.
honesty, I've been better off not knowing there was an ADU going on this
Yeah.
property, because now I feel like
Yeah.
there's already too much here, is kind of my opinion, that if they're gonna put an ADU in, you know, that's another 900 square foot of living spaces and bedrooms, and we need housing, we need beds, but I think not at any cost, and I just feel that we're overwhelming this lot with more cars and more people, and it might just be too much. So I don't know what my other board members feel, but.
This is the only lot that got in with, when we removed the tertiary, or before we removed the tertiary, and the ADU snafu entered the scene, correct? Is there any others on the island that got
I
that?
think it's the only one we know of, I
You
think.
guys might not know everything about that, but
I think it's
possible.
in the limited districts where we had a change from a non-limited district to a limited district, which
Well, that's a
prohibits
different
tertiaries and
question.
special permits, second dwellings. This is the only one in this neighborhood, based on my recollection, that this situation would happen. Everywhere else now would be subject, the way our current bylaw reads, would be permitted a primary dwelling, a second dwelling by
And an
special
ADU,
permit,
no
and an
for-
ADU
No,
by
I
right.
get that, Pat. I'm talking about
There's lots,
the total.
there's
You
lots
know,
and lots.
we removed the third dwelling so that the state's
There is,
law creates us to still be able to have 3, not 4.
so I'm
except for
actually
this one.
working on some research on how many tertiary dwellings have been approved by this board. It's roughly around 100.
Yeah.
But there's follow-up to that. So have they pulled a building permit? Is their ground cover available? So I'm working on that, but I
Yeah.
don't have that answer for you today.
But it's also worth remembering that this is, the current zoning for this parcel wouldn't permit a tertiary. Let's say, setting the ADU aside, it's,
But they had a perimeter plan. so
no,
that-
I
yeah,
I
okay.
understand why they have it, but it's, it just kind of, continues to confound the density proposed.
I agree. So I don't know how the board feels, but I think I've
So
stated how I feel.
here's my what was the name of that song? Pretzel Logic. If we approve this 247 square feet, which is a nothing, we would normally do something like that in a case like this without all the other new issues that have popped up in the last year. With that said, I mean, just because Steve says they're gonna build an ADU, we don't know if that's actually gonna happen or not. I mean, that's not guaranteed to happen. That isn't a freeze either, like that could go away. I mean, there could be something changed with the ADU, correct? No? You think the state's just gonna,
Yeah,
we're stuck with this no matter what?
no magical
I
thing.
would set any dreams of that aside.
Somebody's gonna figure out that we were 100 years ahead of every other town, and now we've been
We're
jumped on.
we're gonna figure out that
Well,
we're 100
because
years.
yeah, but we lost our tertiary covenant because of the state. And that's why I get so upset
Our
about
job
this.
We can
figure
still do
out.
the tertiary lot, tertiary
be
covenant,
okay.
unaffected.
Yeah, but we banned it at town meeting. So
No, we
a
banned
year.
tertiary dwellings.
For a
you
year.
can still do a tertiary covenant,
You absolutely can.
but then there could be an ADU for a fourth dwelling. That's the catch. No? Are you sure about that?
Well, possibly. The problem, I mean, we're
Could have an
kind of
ADU,
digressing. I
yeah.
think we can maybe chat about that particular
25th.
circumstance
I know, but
offline.
you know why I'm saying all this? Because this is gonna end up being the, you know, what are we gonna call
The
it?
poster
The
child of
path.
what we don't want to
Yeah,
happen.
exactly,
And-
right.
And that's why I argue we
And I don't
shouldn't
wanna
be
say
giving
they
them an
can't have
extra.
270 square feet.
I
That's
don't
stupid.
either, but if they're gonna do an
Can I,
ADU.
can I make a legal point, please? So
Yes,
Steve.
Steve.
I appreciate the concern about density, and that this is being developed, different than the current zoning, which is obviously on purpose. But the statute in front of you about whether or not you should grant a waiver to the 20% rule is on whether or not the building looks in conformity to the neighborhood or clearly is otherwise a separate dwelling in conformity with the neighborhood. And what you have here is a single-story building. I mean, if you build this addition, you go from a 750 square foot single-story building to about 1,000 square foot single-story building. And the building it's next to is 1,100, almost 1,200 square feet, and it's 2 stories. So no one would look at this lot and be confused as to which one is the primary and which is the secondary, or that that they have a hierarchy to them based on that 247 square feet. And that's really the question you're supposed to be looking at is, does eliminating the 20% rule make these buildings look too close to being, matchy-matchy? And since they're not, and there are pictures in the file that show that one is a tiny little building and one is a very large building, under that legal standard, I would suggest that's why this is regularly approved, and would request that you follow that standard, despite your otherwise, viable planning board concerns.
Would it be worth asking if you would classify the secondary dwelling as an ADU under the statute?
You can't do that. That's not possible.
Well, but it is an accessory dwelling.
It's not possible because it doesn't meet the criteria, and that would have to be, it would be over the 900 square feet, and that's ultimately a decision of the building commissioner to make. You couldn't condition that in the special permit.
If it would make the board feel better, we could limit the entire property to year-round restrictions so that all 4 dwellings have that restriction.
But you can't do that with the ADU.
Well, I could do it for all the other 3.
And they can volunteer it for the ADU.
Yeah.
We just can't require it.
I see. So one of my questions about the year-round restriction, which I support, is that our definition of year-round is 10 months. And I know why that is. It's useful in some instances, but it also creates an opportunity for a landlord to say you have a 10-month lease and satisfy the year round. Does anybody else have any concern about that?
I don't have concern about that. I understand your concern, but I think that, that to think that someone's gonna kick someone out to get 2 months of rental in the middle of the summer, I just don't, I don't see it happening. No one on this island is gonna, it's a risky game, and I just don't see it happening. I think you have to give some wiggle room for people that live here. People leave for a month or 2 months in the winter, and if we change the definition to 12 months, that makes it very difficult for anybody. I mean, some people go work other places for 2 months in the winter, so that's my concern. I think we're a little bit off track, but yeah. Entertain a motion on this if we can get it together, guys.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
John Kitchener has his hand up.
Floor is yours, John.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, second what you just said. I don't see that happening either. So I agree with you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is what we're zeroing in on that we would, the board seems to feel that they would approve the increase in size of the secondary dwelling if the entire property is restricted to year-round occupancy via a deed restriction?
Yep, and let me just be clear, that would be voluntary,
On the
which I did
ADU.
hear Mr. Cohen volunteer that.
Yeah.
That's correct.
I mean,
Is it
that's not
voluntary?
necessarily my position, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I have a problem with more bedrooms on this lot if an ADU is proposed, and I know that Mr. Cohen will push back and say, that's not what you're looking at, but for me, I can't get around it. It's more bedrooms on a lot, period. So, that's my position.
Yeah, I did reach out to someone who was a neighbor because we didn't have any letters. And I do think that this lot has become developed in a way that's really different from all the lots around it. You know, when you drive around it, it's just becoming more like an apartment complex than what is otherwise. So I did speak with somebody I know who was complimentary and didn't have any issues, which meant something certainly to me. But I don't know if that person understands that there's now going to be another dwelling, and there would be no reason for that person to think that there could be another dwelling. So that could be a real surprise. I also think there have been some health department complaints, none within the last year. But I do think that these are all the things we have to weigh when we grant a completely discretionary special permit to allow the construction of an additional bedroom, even if
What are
it's
the
just a
complaints about the health
dimensional.
department?
I'm sorry?
What are the complaints about the health department?
So in 2023, there was a complaint that people were living in the building that was unsafe and going to be demolished. Presumably, that's been taken care of by removing the building. And prior to that, there was an unpermitted, a cease and desist letter sent for an unpermitted food operation on the lot.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
what I was told.
Yeah.
We're no longer selling soup out of that lot. I bet it was good, though.
Probably was delicious.
That it was.
Filet and
Okay,
fish.
guys, and ladies, we need to make a decision here, so, a motion from
I'm going to
someone?
move that we deny the addition.
Have a second?
They can put the ADU up and get the additional bedrooms in the ADU.
I'd rather see like a different plan. I mean, I get what they're trying to do. I understand what they're trying to do, but as you said, Dave, looking at the site in totality, it's kind of bothersome.
So is there a second? So Dave, you don't want a second?
Well, let's-
Sorry, I'm just.
Sorry, is there a second for discussion, or is just going
We
to?
could do a second for discussion.
Oh, Mr. Chair, did you close the hearing?
I did
Oh, you
close-
did, okay.
Sorry.
No. So with no second, I guess the discussion.
You're not seconding that.
I was gonna hold on, but you know what, I'll second it. Now that you've pressured me into it.
You were the one who brought it up.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we need more discussion, or should we go direct to vote?
Oh, you heard my comment, so it was.
Will you make it again,
Sorry, what
please?
was, yeah, can you make it again?
No, I understand what they're trying to do with the proposed addition. I think that makes sense. But then when you add this extra dwelling, I think this is gonna be really problematic and way too much structures, bedrooms for this lot. So that's where, if I didn't see the whole game,
Yeah.
you know, I like their honesty and stuff like that, but I think that this is gonna have a major impact on this tiny little lot and the neighborhood and Novadier Way. So I feel like if I allow this, then I'm allowing the other part of it, and I can't do that. So I am in line with you all to.
There's nothing we can do about the ADU.
Correct,
We
and
cannot,
that's right.
we cannot condition it on that, we can't do anything. So, and I think that the history of this lot shows that ADU is gonna happen sooner or later. So we're walking into an overdeveloped lot, and I just don't think we should do it. So I'm gonna go to the vote if no one else has anything to say. Motion made by Hillary, seconded by myself. Hillary,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
All right.
John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. That's unanimous. Wow, no one went to second, but everyone said aye.
Yeah, but this is a case study case for us,
It's difficult.
because we haven't had this happen yet.
It's not beds at any cost. It's not, we gotta stop packing stuff on lots.
Well-
So-
Well, they can have the additional bedrooms.
Well, they will get that.
And
We
they-
don't need to
yeah.
give them bonus ones. All right.
That's one way to look at it.
So we are on to LCAM Realty at 99 Goldfinch Drive.
And I'm bringing Arthur Reed over right now.
Okay. Welcome, Arthur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Arthur Reed, representing the applicant in this matter and the property owner. The staff report correctly reports that at the last meeting, the discussion was that we would come up with a revised site plan and then have some discussions with the abutters who objected at the last meeting. And I worked with Dan Malloy, who was the surveyor engineer on the project, and the question was fitting in parking spaces that would fit conforming to the dimensions required under the bylaw in the area of the lot that would be basically in front of the building, coming in from the entrance to the building, which is on the easement area, coming in from Goldfinch Drive, not from Old South Road. There being no vehicular access from Old South Road. And the location of the easement is such that Dan determined that it was in fact not possible to get parking spaces, conforming parking spaces for this lot, for this use, that would come in from the easement that would fit between the building and the edge of the easement. You get close, they're about 17 feet long, the parking spaces, 20 feet being required. And, I think that it would be fair to say that most vehicles are shorter than that. And to the extent that there might be a foot or two of overlap of the vehicles into the way, I don't think that that's going to seriously impact anyone's use of the easement. I would also comment that this is an existing commercial building, received a certificate of occupancy many years ago. We haven't asked for any parking relief. We didn't, when we originally looked at the building, we didn't think we needed any, and that's not really an issue that's before the board. So therefore, in the light of the fact that we weren't able to lay out the parking spaces so that they would be technically compliant, we didn't feel, in the light of the nature of the opposition and the basically what I was being told by counsel for the homeowners association, that it would be very productive to have a meeting with them. We were quite sure that they were going to be in opposition in any event. We are here today. We would like to see the project approved. We have a deadline this month in terms of the lease that has been signed with regard to the property, and we need to have a decision at today's meeting on on our application. As you know, the proposal is for this to be, just in case anyone doesn't recall, this would be a medical practice of with one physician and staff conducting a orthopedic practice, physician who already has a presence on the island. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Oh. Welcome, Sarah. Yep.
Sarah, you can unmute.
Should not make it over.
I'm having trouble unmuting. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, Sarah.
Okay, awesome. So I guess I would start by saying I do represent the Not-Shop Homeowners Association and a variety of homeowners. I do want to say that we're not in opposition to the applicant per se, as much as we are in opposition to what the application is for. And that I disagree with most of, or a lot of what Mr. Reed had to say. First of all, I think there would be a point in our meeting and discussing possible conditions if, in fact, there was a plan that showed some conforming parking, but there isn't. That's a big concern. One of my clients has the right to use the easement area. They took cars and attempted to replicate what would happen if cars were parked in those parking spaces, slopping over into the easement area, and found that it did in fact make access to the structure at 97 significantly more difficult. So no matter what happens, the people who have the right to use the easement on 99 for the benefit of 97 will be opposing any use of parking that impedes that easement area. The way that this parking and this easement situation came into existence is sort of problematic. The structure on 99, which is the part of the structure being rented to Dr. Monto, the building permit was pulled in 1995. The CO was issued in 1996. There was a plan that was submitted that was the basis of the CO that showed it conforming as to parking. That was prior to the building being built on 97 and prior to the grant of the easements, the cross easements. So when the CO issued, the property did in fact conform. But then in, I think it was 2006, the building was built on 97. And sometime shortly after that, the easements were granted, that put 99 into nonconformity with its certificate of occupancy. It no longer can provide the parking that the certificate of occupancy was based on. And this applicant hasn't requested any sort of parking relief. So I don't really see how you can say that parking isn't an issue here if they can't provide the parking that's required under the bylaw for the use that they're proposing. Then they shouldn't get a special permit for the proposed use. They should only get a special permit for a proposed use if they can either meet the conditions of the bylaw or they've appropriately asked for a special permit or other relief to waive those requirements, and they haven't. If this project was going to be approved, which I really sincerely hope it isn't given this parking situation, there are a number of conditions that we would want to be discussing with the applicant. You don't even know at this point what the balance of the building is going to be used for and what parking requirements might be generated by those particular uses. So I think the application is deficient in that it doesn't give you enough information on what's proposed for the balance of the building and for the building itself. It doesn't address the parking issue. There hasn't been a traffic study done. It's pretty much of a disaster for Noshop given the one-way streets and how that's going to work. And, given that we weren't able to even look at a conforming plan, I think it would be really grossly unfair and unjust for you to grant this relief. So I'm asking that you deny the relief.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to add, if a parking waiver is required that wasn't requested as a part of this application, and you wouldn't have the authority to approve it requiring the parking waiver, you'd have to either deny it, I would suggest without prejudice, or it would have to be withdrawn and resubmitted.
Joe has recused.
Yes.
So Joe never
so-
mulled in, so you'd have to activate an alternate for this, please.
Howard's in the room and Howard gets the nod. To staff, I'm sorry, how many parking spaces do they need?
We need 6 spaces for our use. We have under 1,500 square feet of area that would be in use by the medical office. And the requirement in the bylaw is 1 space per 250 square feet.
And
How many employees?
dimensionally, these don't meet the parking spot
Here, I'm gonna pull up
dimensionally, correct?
I'm gonna pull up the prior plan, and it
So they
shows
were
that they're
all-
short of the 20 feet.
They will all intrude into the easement at some level, correct?
That's right. We have the ability to provide parking spaces. Let's see, 6 parking spaces that I think are numbered 1 through 6. We would be able to provide in that area, which would serve our use. They do, as shown on Dan's plan here, extend a little bit into the easement area. Note that the easement area is fairly wide. And it certainly isn't going to interfere with travel through the easement area. And it doesn't, these spaces don't go over into the area where Mr. Crow's business is located, and which isn't part of the easement area itself actually anyway. But these spaces 1 through 6, would, as a practical matter, probably work. But again, they do extend into the easement area.
And my concern more is the access to 97 as well, so I'm sorry. Yeah,
With all due respect, Mr. Chair, sorry, with all due respect to the attorneys and the landlord, I don't see how, we were really specific that we wanted to see a plan that was conforming as to parking, and that nothing has been provided. There's no plan that's been provided that shows conforming with parking. So I don't see how we can approve this. And I also, having driven around Naw Shop, I agree with the owners of Naw Shop. I mean, this would be completely confusing for this type of use. Secondly, I know it's a commercial neighborhood zone on this single parcel, but this parcel is part of the Naw Shop Homeowners Association, and it's subject to a deed restriction, which removes most of the possible uses under CN, but not this one. However, when we are getting unanimous opposition practically, I mean, not a single person from Naw Shop has called and said, I'd really like to have this use. I'm personally confused about what the use is, because I've seen ads from Oceanus Health on social media about their new device that they're going to be used. That's a much distant concern. The main concerns are that we're hearing from the residents, the homeowners, that this building that might be a CN zone, but is really part of their HOA, they do not want this use. We asked for a parking plan, it was not provided. And just practically driving around Naw Shop, I agree, I understand why the homeowners are concerned. So I am a no vote on this.
We have anyone
Yes.
on the board before I go to the public?
You have a couple hands online as
Okay.
well.
All right. I'm going to go to Eric Peterson first.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yeah, I spoke at the last meeting. I'm one of the owners at 97 Goldfinch. Yeah, just, expressed my concerns in the last call, but in the last meeting, there was clear direction to the applicant to come up with a new plan, to work with the abutters, to, try to reach some sort of agreement. We have not been engaged at all in any discussions. There is no new plan. Again, if they had, reached out and tried to come to an agreement in good faith, our stance may have changed, but I just don't see how this can be considered when, they did not engage with us at all.
Thank you. I'm going to let Campbell came up first and then you, sir.
Hi, Campbell Sutton. So I just had a couple things to say about this, because it reminds me of another issue we had with parking, and I won't remember the name of what restaurant was there, but it was by Stop and Shop and the Island Kitchen and that one on the corner. And
Well, it was
and-
the folio then.
yeah, right. And I sort of see the same kind of thing where the person who's trying to rent the space to do something is being held accountable for something that's the property owner's responsibility to provide. Okay? So having been by there today, I sort of saw it as a clear shot. I mean, you take a left onto Goldfinch, you take a left onto Bluebird, and you come right out at 99. You're not going throughout the entire place to try and get there. So there's just Bluebird Lane that would be involved with the extra traffic. I'm just saying, I'm not going for or against anything, just putting some things out there. The other thing is the first 6 areas that were shown on the plan show that the first 4 or 5 parking spots are up against parking on the other side. So it's not like you're restricting someone getting in and out of their driveway or their garage, which is that building where it says existing building on the left. They have a garage. I can see where that is a problem once you get into the structure. But as you can see from this plan, that right behind these 6 parking lots is more parking lot, and you're really only talking about backing out. So I just sort of wanted to make those comments. And I guess it's unfortunate, I think, that the person who's trying to rent or lease the space is being stopped and held accountable for a parking situation that is the building owner's responsibility to provide. Because this parking, 20 foot, it doesn't matter who you are. This 9 by 20 isn't just for this particular situation, right? That's the zoning is 9 by 20. So that has been in place and hasn't come up as a problem in the past. So
Thank you, Campbell. I mean, to be honest with you, even though there was a lot of people against this, I could see my way to an approval, but to be honest with you, with no discussion, no parking plan, I'm looking at it a different way. Scott Wilson. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what, Scott, hold on. I'm sorry. I apologize. Sir, go ahead.
I'm Robert Goldzer. I live at 77 Goldfinch
Yep.
Drive as one of the homeowners. And I drive by this place every day during my activities. And this is going to be an orthopedics office, so people are going to want to park close to the office. They're not going to want to walk far. There's going to be 4 staff people is what we've been told. And we were told by Mr. Reed that they have 6 parking places, and there's 4 staff people. I don't know where those 4 staff people are going to park. I don't imagine they're going to take the wave or bicycle. I'm not sure. But if there's 4 staff people, including Dr. Moto, parked there, that leaves 2 places for patients to park. And I would also remind people of what cars people are driving today. They are not 16 or 17-foot cars anymore. Many people are driving very, very large vehicles. And so that the parking there is, to me, very, very big problematic.
Thank you. I'm sorry, back, Scott Wilson.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Just to confirm what's already been said, that we asked repeatedly for the new plan. Nothing was forthcoming. No discussions were able to be held, as Mr. Reed said, because that plan doesn't exist. And so we've been sitting here with our hands tied for the past month, waiting for something that never came. You can't possibly approve this thing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Sarah and then Arthur afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to emphasize, regardless of whether or not you feel the parking will work from a practical standpoint, reducing the parking and the length of the parking and the size of the parking spaces, particularly for a commercial use, requires specific relief from this board that hasn't even been applied for. And even if it was applied for and it was granted, the easement holders would have to agree to allow parking that slops over into their easement area. And everything that I've heard from these easement holders is, we don't want to allow that. In fact, we'll bring an action to stop the parking from being used. So unless they can come up with a different parking arrangement, or unless they want to come back and ask for a full waiver of their parking, which I would obviously oppose strenuously, I don't see how you can grant the requested relief. And I also just want to emphasize that when Mr. Reed says they need 6 spaces, those are the 6 calculated spaces that are required under the bylaw for the proposed medical use. It doesn't include any other use of any other part of the building. And this lease is only for portions of the building. So unless you're prepared to say that the rest of the building can't be used, and unless the applicant and the owner are willing to say that only the medical use is going to be able to be used. And then with 6 spaces, which I think we can all agree are not going to be sufficient, there's just no way. This is like a round peg in a square hole. There's no way that this application works or should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Arthur?
Yeah, just 2 points. Once again, to restate the obvious, if it were possible to create a plan that would create the 6 parking spaces that I'm talking about within the lot and without any overlap of the easement, we'd do it. And that's the reason why we haven't circulated a replacement plan. It's just not possible to create one that would meet those standards. And I know that, as Sarah says, the neighbors would strenuously object and probably appeal if we were successful in terms of any relief from the parking with regard to that issue. The other thing that I wanted to comment on is that we definitely, in response to Hillary's comment about Oceanus, we are not aware of and didn't have any knowledge of the other Oceanus until that issue came up. That has nothing to do with us. This is solely Dr. Monto's practice and doesn't involve any other company or any other activity that operates under that name. Not that it makes a lot of difference, but I just wanted to make it clear that we have nothing to do with them. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Arthur.
Hello, my name's Nicole Ridge, 97 Goldfinch Drive. My major concern has been addressed by Mr. Wilson and as well as Mr. Peterson. If we're supposed to have a good standing relationship with this new neighbor and they can't even follow through on this first point of reaching out with us to try to make some compromise now, I feel very worried about what will happen going forward. And my second concern is about what this office is actually going to be. From what I've also seen online, as Ms. Report mentioned, that it seems it's more than orthopedics, or orthopedics is an aside. So that makes me wonder what kind of use it falls under also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kenneth.
Kenneth Gentner.
Hi there, Ken Gentner here. Mr. Chairman, thanks for the opportunity to speak. A lot has been said about parking on the property, the lot that's shared by 97 and 99. But I want to perhaps disabuse you of some of the thoughts that have been expressed by other speakers. I live at 45 Goldfinch. It turns out that that is at an intersection of 2 roads, Goldfinch and Kittiwake. And throughout the entire course of our stay on the island, which often is from the beginning of May until the end of October, so a good chunk of time, we can see people who are unfamiliar with Gnaw Shop trying to find their way along to some particular address. And I can assure you that not everyone will know to turn left onto Bluebird and go down to Goldfinch, where they can make a quick jog into that parking lot. So it's going to drive traffic through the whole course of the community. But the second and perhaps most important thing is on-street parking, because the temptation might be to say, well, if the 6 slots are not enough, or if it happens that one patient arrives too soon before another patient leaves, they'll just park on the street. That's not possible. There are, to our thinking as well, just too many curb cuts along all of the streets of Gnaw Shop. With good reason, there are double wide parking off the street for many of the vehicles, but that makes on-street parking precious. But more importantly, along a stretch of Bluebird, 1 block in length is the only 2-way portion of any street in Gnaw Shop. And we don't allow any parking there at all. That's something the board struggled with to enforce, but it's reasonably observed. People are going to be tempted to park there. And if they do, even though there are signs not to do that, you know, human nature, people who need to make an appointment are going to park where they need to and then walk in. We have no enforcement mechanism for that kind of a violation of our parking regs. Our only enforcement is against owners, not renters, not visitors. So, I would urge you to judge carefully any plan that doesn't have a good and conforming parking plan. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Sarah? It was. Was that an errant hand, Sarah? Hope she'll get on if she needs to speak. Anyone else in the room that wants to just have anything to say about this application? Board members? I'm going to give a second to see if Sarah needed to get back on, and then I will.
You must want to say something now.
I think we need to leave it open because of that date.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I don't see how we can continue to talk about something when we asked for a parking plan and they didn't give us a parking plan and they didn't communicate with the people at Shop who were reaching out to them. I just think we should, I'm not sure what the right response is, but it's certainly not to approve it.
No, I agree. I have great concern about the parking, about the consequences if we approve this to the neighbors that share that parking area or use it at some level for access. So, I'm with you at this point, but
And I also want to say for the record, the Oceanus, the treatment device, the social media postings, which I saw and forwarded to staff, even if the parking were resolved, the use is murky. And with all due respect, Attorney Reed, it just doesn't tie out. So I think if we do come back, that's still an issue that has to be understood.
well, I mean, and back to the parking, that 4 employees, 6 spots just seems wholly inaccurate.
There's numerous, I just wanted to be clear that there's also a question about the use in this statement of, what the use is, and do we have all the information?
All right, I'm gonna,
Mr. Chair, yeah.
is Sarah back?
her
Sarah?
hand's back up.
Wasn't being allowed to unmute. I don't know why, but anyway, thank you. The only thing I wanted to add was the fact that this parking situation is completely self-created, not by the applicant, but by the property owner. And if the property owner wants to rent the property, they've got to somehow solve the parking situation that they themselves created when they did kind of a bait and switch, got a CO, and then completely undid the conditions that the CO was based on. So while I'm sympathetic to the applicant, you just can't rent something that you can't make conform, and you shouldn't be approving it. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Arthur, one more time, and then we're gonna close this down.
Yeah, just in response to what Sarah said, actually, I don't think it makes any difference, but by way of the history, the present parking arrangement was created by a prior owner, not the present owner. The present owner actually bought this property after foreclosure, as I recall. And the easements and property lines and what happened on 97, where the original parking was shown at the time of the construction of the building, that all happened before the present owner. And they may not have been aware of it when they stepped in. Again, I'm not working for them, I'm working for the applicant, but I just wanted to let you know that that was a situation that they walked into rather than one that they created.
All right. Thank you, Arthur. All right, without anyone's hand up and no one in the room, I would entertain a motion to close.
You can, I mean, there's the deadlines.
Motion to close the public hearing.
We don't know.
Go
I
ahead.
second the motion to close the.
Motion made. Motion made by Hillary, seconded by Howard. Hillary,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Nat. Aye. John. John,
Aye.
thank you. As for the merits, motion,
I move to deny.
that's what you like. Do I have a
I'd like to
second?
second that motion.
All right, motion made by Hillary, seconded by Howard. Hillary,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. That's unanimous. All
Thank you
right.
for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Okay. Next is Nantucket Memorial Airport. Give me 1 second. I need at least Joe to come back. We're getting there. All right. Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission, Airport Manager 33 and 33A Bunker Road. Mr. Malloy, welcome back.
Evening, Dan Malloy for the applicant. So Bunker Road, you're familiar with the property. You approved a special permit amendment on the adjacent property under the current same leaseholder applicant. Jeff Smith owns the lease on the left side, which you approved last year. Since that approval, just as a quick update, he's constructed the two buildings in the back. Portions of the, I say the majority of the construction on the left side, which you approved, is completed. Some of the areas have been paved, so there's already some storage containers there. Some of the site is still actively under construction, but it's close to completion. He has recently secured a second lease with the airport for the second side, which would before you tonight for another amendment. Just waiting. So the amendment we're asking for tonight is an extension of what you've already approved next door. We're asking to the ability to store additional containers on this property, put two additional storage buildings in the back, essentially the same, well, in this case, both buildings are the same construction, the same type, the same aesthetic as what's already out there. The only relief we're asking for with this application, the previous one had a limitation of 18 boxes, containers on the property. We're asking that to be lifted so we can store additional containers on this property. The main reason it's going to be lifted is we're trying to bring a lot of containers in. As you're aware from other applications, there's issues with containers in different places on the island. So we're bringing, a lot of them are eventually headed our way. So we're trying to accommodate as much of that as we possibly can. So in this case, we're asking for the relief to go more than 18. We will likely be double stacking them, 2 units tall. In terms of part of the application, there was a review done by Ed Pesci. We're completely fine with all of his comments, complying with, whatever he's requesting for information. That's not an issue. Access, obviously, we're looking at one driveway to come in and out. There's suitable access, there's sufficient parking. We can certainly tweak it as Mr. Pesci's suggested. That's not an issue. I know earlier tonight there was a question to do with colors.
Yep.
I don't recall if that was a condition of the previous amendment in this, but I can tell you that all of the units are beige.
Good.
And they will all remain beige.
Perfect.
So if that's something that you are inclined to add in some manner, we're certainly very fine with that. So there's nothing new here. It's what you've seen out there today, just expanded across there. In this case, the left side does have the vehicle impound lot, this side will not. This is strictly storage containers in the two buildings in the back, no vehicle impound.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you. I guess I gotta ask you, do you remember And I'm pretty sure we restricted materials that could be stored in there in the first application.
That's correct. There's a condition in there, I don't forget the wording specifically, but no hazardous materials. to that
And you'd
effect.
be fine with that carrying over
Yes, we're
to
not
this?
asking to change any conditions other than the quantity of units.
Board members?
It's CI zoning. I mean, this is
It is where it belongs.
This is where the stuff needs to be, so that's one thing I think we can all agree on in Nantucket, which is not a comment. So. And the colors, I mean, I think that's more about the places where, the new places where they are, but that's fine if they're all beige, obviously. So. That's it.
All right. Joe, any questions? No?
Nope.
John?
No, I'm good.
Okay, we'll go to the public then, if there's anyone in the room that wants to comment on this or online. I would entertain a motion to close public, oh.
So I just wanted to clarify something, because I guess I'm not, oh, sorry, Campbell Sutton. So I guess I'm not really clear, and I haven't seen it in an application before for double stacking.
I think you you commented on when we had it stacked over in Arrowhead area, because we screened it and
So
made
it
sure
would-
they were all the same
right,
color.
but they would be screened color. So you're thinking it's similar to the boat racks?
Similar, and
Right?
I don't think screening's appropriate here because of its location, but, and you won't need FAA approval with just 2 stacks, correct?
They will have to get FAA.
They will,
One of the
okay.
conditions in the permit is we have to get FAA
Oh,
approval
okay.
before we put it in, and that's definitely required. Regardless of what you might ask for, we have to do that anyways.
Okay.
And lighting as well? Isn't it too, it's height and lighting?
Height and lighting, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Leslie? Just a segue, sorry.
That's it.
So I just wanted to say that I highly encourage the board to approve this in this location with the 2 stacked. You've been seeing increasing applications for the storage containers. They've really become an enforcement issue across the island, and putting them out here is really the most appropriate place for them to be, regardless of color.
Couldn't agree more, but it would still be nice if they were all one color.
It would be. And I think that's been longstanding as a request. So then there's going to be something that can pick them up there?
There'll be equipment on site, whether it's a forklift or a crane, to pick them up and move them. That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. I would entertain a
close?
motion to, oh, Hillary's disappeared for a
She'll
second.
be right back.
Okay, so further discussion? Questions? You guys are good? Good, Joe?
Yeah.
John, good?
Good.
All right, we're just going to wait for Hillary to come back quick.
We can still close with 4.
Okay. Motion close?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by John, seconded by Nat. John?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, unanimous.
Where are we at? Next.
It's gloomy out there. It's supposed to rain. It's getting dark early. If we had term limits that there. someone, Joe. So I would entertain, or a discussion or entertain a motion on this application.
Motion to approve per staff recommendations.
And Ed Pesci's
And Pesci's
in all one color.
Yeah,
Is that it?
that's it.
Perfect. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion made by Nat, seconded by Joe. Nat?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Hillary?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't go far, Dan. Next is Donna L., 2012 Revocable Trust, Donna L., trustee, 9 Nobsco Way.
Evening again, Dan Malloy for the applicant, Donna L. So we're before you tonight for an approval required subdivision. We've got a property just over, just over 18,500 square feet. It's zoned R5. So R5 is a 5,000 square foot lot allowance. What we're asking for tonight is approval of a road that shows the ability to create 3 building lots. Our intention, if the board is favorable in this application, is to follow it up with a rear lot subdivision in its place, so we don't end up building an actual roadway. So what you're looking at is a 20-foot right-of-way that will provide the access through a roadway with frontage to the 3 lots. Each lot meets zoning requirements. They're all slightly over the 5,000 square foot allowance. Water and sewer is available to the property. There are no wetland environmental restrictions, issues in this vicinity, so we're not concerned about that. I know there were several abutter concerns. There were a lot of emails and things that came in. I have reviewed those. So I will say that we'll take a look, some of the questions that came up that I wasn't familiar with. Apparently there's some type of drainage problem in the street. So we'll certainly have to take a look at that. So we would expect anything that we do on our property to have to contain it and deal with it. So at an absolute minimum, we're not exacerbating any existing situations. And we can certainly look at what's going on in the street if there's anything within our means that we can do to either help fix it or possibly fix it. So I just want to say we're aware of it. I just don't know the extent of what that is at this time. But we're looking, like I said in the beginning, we're looking for a 3-lot approval required as the first step to follow up with their special permit for the rear lot subdivision. That's the application.
Great. Thank you, sir. Board members, questions? No one will end, Billy? John's good.
I'm good.
No hands are up online.
Okay. Public comment is open. Please state your name when you come to the mic.
My name is Janet Wayne. I live at 4 Nobsco Way. The drainage issue, yes, it's right in front of my house, and it goes sometimes from my mailbox almost all the way down to this property. I also want to know, where is the water? Because she should have a well. All of us have wells. We have no water on the street. Maybe Mr. Jellamy has put some water in his property, but we have no water on the street. We all have wells. So I want to know what's going to happen with this.
Okay.
When you say there's water.
I'm confused about the water piece.
Dan
The-
said that there was sewer and water with that. Yes, we are on town sewer, but every
This is an
lot
odd
on
name.
this
Have that.
street has a well.
Okay,
What about her? Is she gonna have to hook it into town water, or is she gonna have more wells on her property? That's what I wanna know. Because I'll tell you, everybody on the street, we can't afford town water.
okay.
Right.
All right, and just to clear up a misconception, I think you guys are, when you refer to Carl Jellamy, it's not Carl Jellamy, it's
I know, I know all
Carl's.
about that store. I know.
So, I don't know how to pronounce the name.
Toscana, I know the whole thing.
No, it's not Toscana that did the subdivision.
It's LLC.
At the end of the street it is.
Wait,
Carl did the.
oh, originally,
You're
but I
talking
thought you were
no,
talking
you're
about
She's talking about the end lot on the left.
the end lot.
She's
Okay, not talking about,
Capture on.
okay,
We're getting a
okay,
little mixed up.
okay, all right, perfect.
He might have water somewhere,
Okay,
but nobody else.
all right. I'll let Dan,
I may have misspoken on the
answer-
town water. If I have, I'll certainly check that and correct it. So if town water isn't accessible, we'll be putting wells in.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yep, come on up.
Town water in Nantucket. We don't have it down here. I mean, it is kind of
Hi.
weird.
Hi, 5 Knobsco Way, Sharon Ames. My question is, as I was coming here and I was backing on my road, out of my driveway, I almost got plowed over because we never had subdivisions on our street until Carl Jellamy. You've given him 4 lots, ample buildings. I will quote Jay Starr, who says, how can you count bedrooms anymore? Because you have basements with so many bunk beds. Since Carl Jellamy took over that property and kept putting houses and people on it, we have a highway. And I will quote Nat Lowell, who said, Sharon, you've got to change your zoning because somebody could put in a gas station.
That's right. That's true.
I'll take a gas station over Carl Jellamy's housing right now. It is a highway.
Wow.
And it's a dead end. So everybody that has to go to that dead end has to go down the whole road. And that property was for sale 2020 in February. She took it off because nobody wanted to buy it. And my fear is that she might not develop it, but somebody else will. And that just adds to more traffic going down that road. The density, that road is used by people who go to the park. They ride those electric bikes, they walk their dogs, they ride bicycles. And it's a dead end, and you're just sending more traffic and density down a dead end road that used to be real quiet. I have other issues, but I think my main concern is how many people are gonna live in those 3 houses? 4 lots. 4 lots, you say that's unbuildable? It might be unbuildable today.
No, it's gonna be 3. The lot is a road, one of them, that's.
So lot 4 is
It's a
just the
proof
road.
plan, yeah.
So those 3 houses could in reality give us 9 more cars, 10 more cars. Way more. And Mr. Jellamy has kind of filled our, right, I'll take the gas station.
Or a
I'll
restaurant,
take the gas station.
or a hotel.
That closes at a certain time. But I just hope that you look at other variables other than what is there. And I understand legally you just need to look at that, but
This one? Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I respond a little bit?
Of course.
Just, I'm gonna respond to what you just said. Not necessarily about this application, just this area, and there's other areas like this. One coming up next. An area that was developed in the 80s under RC2, which is build just about everything except the hotel. At a time where we just built a house on the weekends with our friends. somebody'd come by with a loader and dig the hole. They didn't use excavators. These areas, Sharon, I'm just being truthful, are going to redevelop on their own, one lot at a time, in a different time. We're not in 1985, okay? It isn't $15,000 to build a house on the weekend, okay? We are cognizant of all these things. Traffic, now you've got the blockage at the end of all the roads to get to Essex. If we came around and said, hey, we need to open all this up, everybody'd blow a gasket. But it'd probably be better, but we're not talking about that. I'm just giving you an example. We dealt with that with Fifth Way, cutting through, that got open, but there was a gate for a long time. This is just, we reduced your zoning, when it was before, but there's still a lot of by right development allowed. And houses can be torn down. I don't think this one is on that list, but there's a lot of houses down there that in this area and other areas like it that are gonna get changed. And it isn't something that we can just say, oh, you can't do this. And I'm just telling you the truth as somebody I care about. And people that live here year-round that are not paying super close attention to every little thing that happens. This is one of those things that's inevitable, one lot at a time, at some point. So we can't tell them that they can't drive their car to the house. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, it's complicated.
It's the excess.
I know, and we built roads without on-street parking. We did things differently, and now we're looking at the same places 45 years later and saying, or 40 years later, and saying, finding the problems, but we have to accept what they are and try to do the best we can.
It just seems like a lot of waivers too, that.
If you could stand,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry, but you gotta stand up so
Yeah.
that we
Sorry.
get, no, you're good, but,
I'm trying to
I get it.
I'm trying to be
Um,
simple.
I'm not picking on you, but you have to be at the mic, thanks.
It just also seemed like a lot of waivers in
It's-
this area.
Depends on
It's
what
the
they are.
nature of the sublot, I mean, rear lot subdivision application that shows all these waivers, and in the end,
It looks like
we're
you're,
looking for more of a country cottage feel of a
Yeah.
smaller road for a driveway, a shared driveway for these lots. And so, in other words, this gets flipped into a different look. They have to come back to us. It's a little confusing, but I'm sure Ms. Molden is going to speak to that right now.
And I also would like to thank the man over there.
Mr.
Billy
Saad, Billy
the
Saad.
tall guy.
He's been answering all my emails.
He is great, like the rest of our staff members. Let me, okay, come on up, Pennell.
Yeah, Pennell Ames, 5 Knobsco Way. Back to the water issue. Not only is every house on Knobsco Way on a well, a lot of the wells tested bad. Not just a little bad. The house right next to the lot right next to Donna L's tested 50, and 20 is the point of failing. So, there's probably no water there, and there's a lot of houses on this island that probably don't pass the PSF test. There's a lot of houses here. So there's gonna be no drinkable water there. And, all you have to do is take a drive through Satcham's Path and then take a drive down Macy Lane and tell me who got it right and who got it wrong. Because there's some places here that, it's pretty hard living. You'd be doing, whoever ends up on that lot, you'd be doing them a favor if you kept the chunks of land bigger and put less lots in. Because there's some places here where there's only room for a bicycle and a fishing pole on those lots, and that is it. And there's a lot of them.
Yep.
It's getting away from you. The answer isn't provide more houses, the answer is start providing less services. You know, people don't have to have their roof, a perfectly good roof reshingled every 20 years, you know, if it's a cedar roof. People don't have to tear down perfectly good trophy houses and put up another trophy house. But they can do it because you keep feeding them all this labor. You know, you gotta think about providing a little less services. People are gonna have to wait a little bit longer for some of the things they want, especially the more affluent residents here. So.
They don't like to
The
wait.
answer isn't,
I haven't heard this one
the
yet.
answer isn't more houses. The answer is you gotta tone things down. And, you know, you'll find a lot of people here that agree with that.
I don't disagree with you. Did you have something to say, Alex?
Yeah, just wanted to let the neighbors know that, you know, they did work with us to rezone this from RC2 to R5, which was
Yeah.
a great step. But if they're interested in reducing further subdivision potential, which won't help with this application, but most of the lots on that street are dividable, they could get together and propose R10. Town meeting's coming up.
Yeah, that's a
Or we
very
could
good
propose it.
suggestion.
Which will never
We
happen.
could also propose it.
We could, I've,
Never.
our
been
experience with that, like it was right back here on
Yeah,
Bayberry, I
I-
think,
exactly.
where
I'm right
this was a
there.
very similar situation, and we moved to change their zoning to protect them from subdivision, and when we went to do it, half the neighbors came in and said, no, 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 don't do it. So
Yeah.
we're in a difficult situation, but I mean, I don't, I agree with Pennell. I would be more comfortable with this application with just one rear lot. I think it would be a more livable area and be more true to the area that exists, but anyway, Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land and Water Council. I also had some concerns that I wanted to raise with the board. As has been discussed, this is intended to be a proof plan for a rear lot subdivision. And I think as the board knows, the intention of the rear lot subdivision, as stated in the provisions in the bylaw, is not to create additional lots that couldn't otherwise be created under the zoning bylaw and rules and regs. So in this instance, we have a 3-lot subdivision with a proposed roadway that is requiring 6 different waivers from the roadway standards and dimensional requirements. And that's for the width, it's for the dead-end street, the size of the cul-de-sac. And I think my question for the board is whether or not this is an adequate roadway for a 3-lot subdivision, and whether this is the type of roadway that the board would permit for a subdivision elsewhere on the island. I think all of those subdivision rules and regs and those roadway standards are put in place for reasons, for public safety, for adequate access. And with all due respect, contrary to Mr. Chair, your comment that rear lot subdivisions are all about or involve waivers and then the roadway's not built, I believe that's the wrong interpretation of the bylaw. I think the intention of the bylaw is not to pass something with a lot of waivers because it's not actually going to be constructed. I think the intention of the bylaw is to allow a rear lot where you would approve a subdivision with an adequate roadway lot. So I think I would just pose the question is, I mean, I hope that this is not the new norm as far as roadway lots that are approved for new subdivisions. If it's not, and if this is not an adequate roadway lot for this 3-lot subdivision, then I don't think you should approve this permit, regardless of whether the proposal is to turn it into a rear lot subdivision later, because I think that would go against the intent of the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Campbell Sutton. I live on Appleton Road. So I may go a little bit longer on this. So to the R10 thing, when I was more involved with the board, I proposed R10 for this area and for Thurston's Way, which has also been changed to R5. So I'd like us to just scope out a little bit for a minute. So I believe, so the first 2 lots on, if you're going down towards the dead end on Nobska Way, were frozen in the RC2 district, right? And they used their 2 lots that were owned by the same people, and they created a roadway lot with 4 lots on it using 2 curb cuts on Appleton. And at that time, which I believe was in January 2024, I'm gonna guess here, I had also stood up and mentioned the ramifications of this precedent setting. Each of these lots, I believe there are 12 others, have approximately 18,500 square feet each. So each of those 12 lots can have this happen to them. So in a larger scope, and then you've got Thurston's Way, which is in the same position, because most of these lots at this time have a single family home on it. Maybe they have a garage with an apartment or something. So my concern is so many, I can't hardly list them. But anyway, I'd written a letter to the planning board back in January of 2024. And so I had, just in part, because I don't want to take up too much time, given that the development of these properties is precedent setting, as to date, no one in Nobsco Way subdivision has utilized the previous RC2 zoning to create commercial or residential 5,000 square foot lots. It's important to consider the long-term effects and impacts this application on the greater residential area of Thurston's Way, Nobsco Way, and Appleton Road. I mention this because the consequences of creating R5 along Nobsco Way, an area of mainly individually owned 18,500 plus square foot lot, where most of the 12 lots consist of a single family home for a total of 12 dwelling units and approximately 48 vehicles, give or take. In addition to the 2 lots under discussion, an individual owner wishing to maximize their property would need to create a roadway lot to access the 3 5,000 square foot lots now available to them under R5. Because as previously stated, R5 requires 50 feet of frontage, and given that each of the lots in question has only 101 feet of width, each property will have either one curb cut onto Nobsco Way and another to service the roadway lot, or one curb cut to service the roadway lot for the 3 properties, totaling in this case 12 roadway lots on Nobsco Way. This narrow rural way and the rural road it attaches to would now service a minimum of 36 dwelling units and 144 vehicles, give or take. And that's only if, as I would request and would be keeping with the current residential character of the neighborhood, you restrict each proposed future 5,000 square foot lot to a single family home with an attached garage, apartment, studio, workshop. If such a restriction is not placed on these lots, then there is potential for 108 dwelling units and upwards of 300 vehicles along this one roadway whose only entrance and exit is Appleton Road. The safety of such a build-out should be of concern to all of us. I'm also wondering if the 11 other developments would result in 12 HOAs for this one neighborhood, or whether with the creation of the first HOA, all future lots would become members of the one. While this application is for an RC2 zoning freeze, I believe it's important to look at and consider the long-term ramifications of this initial proposal on the surrounding neighborhoods. I would like to thank the planning board and its staff for taking the time to read and consider my concerns. When it came to the number of cars, obviously I live on the road, so I went and physically counted how many cars there are, and it averages out to 4 cars per lot. Which is why Appleton Road is already highly trafficked road with increasing roadside parking issues along all 6 roads, and that's even before one includes the future numbers from Nobsco Way, not to mention the results of a similar build-out of the abutting properties on Thurston's Way. Okay, so I have great concerns that this area is going to become Essex, and I don't think that that's appropriate use. We have only one exit. I think that this whole area needs to be taken into consideration. I forgot my little piece of paper with what I was going to request. But I was going to request that this not be passed tonight, that it be looked at by the police, the fire, that the potential build out here be looked at by the police, the fire, the sewer department, and the water department, to get their feedback on their ability to even service the build out in this area. As we know, we are challenged in all of those areas right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Campbell. Board members, Nat, you're itching.
I'm actually having flashbacks of all the meetings that we talked about, what could happen, zoning, what's allowed under your feet, et cetera, and this is reminding me of Thurston's and all that before.
So I want to follow up about something that Nat said, where there are things where we made our bed, we have to lie in it, and we just have to try to have the most restful night's sleep that we can. This is not one of those situations. We have the ability to deny this subdivision because we have the ability to deny all of the waivers that it's asking for. And we're hearing from people on the street that they're scared. I'm looking at their faces as Campbell is talking about her prescient letter sent in 2024 about all the cars, and they're not happy. And I also hear about the drainage, and that's a real concern. So the rear lot subdivision is there to really add a benefit when we would approve a subdivision. I don't see this as an approvable. I don't think this plan as presented is approvable. I don't see why we would approve it, given the location and what we're hearing from the neighbors. So I don't think this is something where we just have to say, well, we'll try to do better next time. We should say no.
My concern here is our inability to restrict the number of units. So personally, I struggle with 3 lots here, knowing that no matter what we do, there will be 6 housing units on there, or could be 6 housing units altogether on there. So I mean, I could see my way to a 2-lot subdivision, but for me, I think 3 is just too much. 2 lots would be more in keeping with some of the other development patterns going on in this neighborhood. But I just feel that 3 is, for me, too much.
And to piggyback on that, so going down to 12 Knobscoway, but don't forget, the Sherlin's locked in, and there's 5 other
Insane
lots.
amount, yeah.
So I think the impact on the street is gonna be way too much. And so I hear what they're saying. When I saw this, I just thought this was gonna be far too many structures on this lot. But then again, I think 2 would be better, but at the same time, you're still gonna get 6 lots. So you're gonna still make,
Not six.
or, sorry, 6 houses.
Not if we restrict it to.
No, but that's where I'm
real
saying,
lot.
like, this is where we need to come in with restrictions as well to
Oh,
like. how are we gonna-
100% agree. I'm
So-
not saying an unrestricted 2-lot. I
Right.
think we restrict to 1 dwelling, knowing that we'll probably get a 900 square foot ADU. But I just think 3 is too much for me.
Yeah, and going back to,
3
you
full
know,
build out.
I think that
3 full build out.
No.
the neighborhood should get together, and I think we should endorse it, changing the zoning in this area. And I think that anyone that's in this area
You'll never
should be,
do it, Joe.
I understand that, Nat, but this is where we need to at least take an attempt at it. I mean, Hillary, am I wrong? I mean, seriously, like,
No,
this is what we should be
no, I
doing,
agree.
because this is what we get, and then no one wants it.
Yeah.
But at least we've said that we've done this, and we've
So
tried to climb the hill.
One question. What's the frontage on that lot?
100 and
The existing
10.
frontage is 107.
Is it 50?
50
foot
feet.
required.
So you could do an A&R with 2 lots. on
But the
there.
house is in the wrong place.
It
and it's a
always
nice
is, and
house.
Clearly, they're gonna rip down.
Clearly
the
it's
house.
gonna
They're
already
not gonna
gonna
rip down the
they're
house,
already
are
gonna rip
they?
it
Is that
down.
the plan?
Yeah, it's
Well, no, that's
gapping-
just-
Well, I didn't
it's
see that.
gapping
Does
two-
it say
two
that?
lots.
Yeah, but that doesn't, yeah, but the lots are gonna look
They're
different when you
gonna
get rid of the road,
They're gonna
Dave.
sell it
But
and let
could
the
you do an
owner
A and R with two lots here?
do what they
There could
want.
be a two-lot A&R plan today.
Okay.
Walk in, walk out. We could follow that up with a rear lot or not.
Yeah.
And so,
We're certainly, we're here to discuss this. We're not saying this is the only option.
yeah,
So
okay.
if what I'm hearing is two lots, maybe that's more agreeable. Then we need to go back on our end and determine, do we want to just do two A&R lots and be done? Do we want to come back and do a rear lot subdivision? Do we want to change this plan? What I'm hearing, obviously, what the concerns are. So what I'm hearing is, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but a version of this plan might be acceptable under two lots. If we were to pull that back and then follow up with a rear lot, the issue I see with the subdivision approval, you don't really have as many controls as you have on the rear lots.
Yeah,
Because it's special,
So I think what the abutters need to understand is this applicant could pull this application and come back with an approval not required by right subdivision into two lots, allowing a full build out
At
on those two
40%
lots.
ground cover.
40% ground cover, two dwellings?
This is,
Three dwellings in there?
yeah,
Well, three with an ADU, right? Or we could work with the applicant
Yeah.
and do a rear lot and restrict it to one dwelling per
Yeah.
lot, which in reality would give them two because of the new state law. So
And that's
that's
not
something that
guaranteed.
you all need to understand here, is that in the end, I think a rear lot with two lots would be better for you than them coming back with an A and R with three dwellings on each lot. I mean, it's difficult, but that's the reality. Oops, you have to stand up. Come on up to the mic.
Sharon, it's tough. You have to like look at this as just dirt in your mind.
Stop, nah,
You just do.
please. Thank you, Sharon. Can you come to every meeting?
She loves talking to me.
I have a question, and it's, if this lot is sold, does this plan get approved with the sold new person? Or does it
Plan
come
would
back to
tra-
you to be
It would
changed?
travel with the land.
So if she tomorrow decides she wants to sell this, and we
Yeah.
approve it tonight,
Yeah,
the new
we're not
owner-
approving anything tonight.
okay,
I would
but
say.
I'm just saying, whatever. If she was to sell this, the new owner gets all of this, correct?
The
Or
prop-
does the new owner have to start all over?
No, the property, the decision would travel with the land, but the new owner would have the same property rights as the previous owner. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, so, but if we approved this tonight and they sold it, yes, the new owner would have that decision to use as they please.
And Nat, she's gonna move the house off, you need to be.
No, I didn't see that. Well, it's very foggy on my screen. The new stuff.
Excuses.
The screen, Sharon, the screen.
Screen's fine. So that's actually what I want to ask Dan. Dan, can we just have a conversation since we're doing it? So the house is going, no matter what.
The intent,
I mean,
the
I went
owner's
down there
intent,
today
and
and
I'll
actually
speak to this
looked at
because
it and
that's
said,
what I
it's a pretty nice
understand it to
house.
be,
But
is to move the house, to
Typical.
cut off a portion of the house in the back, relocate the house on one of the lots, the
Okay.
cut off portion
All
on
right.
another lot.
Okay,
But
that's different.
Because it looks like she's gonna go back to the original design when she built it.
that's
which
correct.
was a
She's not
simple
going,
Cape
she's not
cottage.
leaving. Her intention is to stay there, reconfigure the house so it fits on one of the lots, move a cutoff piece somewhere else. At the end of the day, to finance her existence to stay here.
Yeah.
Could all change tomorrow, but that's the plan as I understand.
So I'm seeing this, the A and R idea is ridiculous because the neighbors lose.
It would be
the A&R.
terrible for the neighborhood, I
So
think.
my we got to go back to when the real lot first started and we were restricting before we wanted to deed restrict to year round and all that, which wasn't that long ago, but we were doing that. And so I guess the question is, as Dave already said, do we go with the three lots, which is the future plan, which is going to have bigger lots? They're going to be bigger, okay?
Two lots.
No, hold on. I'm just saying a 3-lot rear lot subdivision or a 2-lot rear lot subdivision with restrictions. So if we go to a 2-lot rear lot plan, you can't restrict it to one dwelling per lot. They're gonna be 8, what are they gonna be? 8,
Well, I mean, the board can
9,000?
restrict anything they want. The question at that point.
What I'm saying is, having 3 lots with one dwelling might be better than 2 lots with a lot more, is what I'm getting at. That's all I'm saying. So I think that's where we are at. The ADU question, if we say, that's kind of what I'm saying. If we go to 3 lots and have one dwelling, but the ADU is floating out there as the potential second dwelling, regardless of whether we have a 2-lot or a 3-lot final plan. And there's gonna be a lot more ground cover with 2 lots per lot.
Correct.
See, that's the other part. You're gonna be transferring 40% onto some big lots. So I'm just trying to tell them what's the options are. A&R is ridiculous. They're giving up all their control if they do that.
That is true.
So,
So for a path forward, 'cause it's quiet now, I'm hearing quite clearly that we're not discussing 3 lots tonight. So what I need to understand is what, assuming for a minute that 2 lots were acceptable, you're not voting on that necessarily, but if that were acceptable, is that something you want to see a different version of the same plan, which just shows 2 lots? Or,
I think that's what you're saying.
or would it be
That's what
approval with only 2 lots?
I don't want the applicant to get frustrated with us
Yeah.
and come back here with an A&R, because I think that that would be bad for everyone in the neighborhood. If, my personal feeling, and I don't know how the board feels, that if she's willing to do 2 lots with restriction to one dwelling unit, which
Really
means
means
obviously she still gets 2 because of the ADU law, then I feel that that would be better for this neighborhood.
This end of the
With the
neighborhood.
realization that you could come up with an A&R and have 6 dwellings and no control. So that's my fear for the neighborhood. So I hope the applicant will agree with this and we can move forward. What do you think, Joe? You doing the math?
Do the math of the 2 lots and where they would come from. But I feel like if you have 2 lots and it's 14,000, so you're 7,000 square feet, so, you know, you might have a house that's 2,000 square feet and you might have an ADU that's like, 1,000 square feet. So that's the balance in that we're trying to work with, but they're gonna have more traffic, but we're gonna limit as much as we
But how
can.
much traffic are they gonna have if they do an A&R and full build out to 6?
I mean, it's,
And they already got sewer going down the street.
Sewer and water's not far away.
yeah,
Sewer's
water's
already
not,
down the street.
Yeah, sewer's
So
on
Yeah, they
water.
have
is
sewer
down
on
the
it.
road.
Yeah.
So, but that's not gonna be triggered, it's the sewer.
Sewer, yeah, yeah, so, I mean, I think the best case scenario would be a rear lot with two lots. At least,
So-
in my opinion.
I guess with that, what I think I'm asking for then to close this up is a continuance to the next public hearing. So at that point, we can either come back with a revised plan for 2 lots. We may come back with a 2-lot A&R. We may come back with something that proposes a future rear lot. But regardless, I'd like to ask continuance so we can look into it further and come back next meeting.
It's absolutely in your right to ask for a continuance, and it makes sense, but I put a lot of, this is the second time that Emily Molden has come to us with questions about if we're handling the bylaw of a rear lot subdivision correctly by by having an inclination to be overly lenient on subdivision waivers because it's a request for a rear lot. And I think we have to take that quite seriously and hope that we have some follow-up with some global guidelines and advice worked out with the Land and Water Council and staff. I think we also have to remember that we've had comments about the well water quality comments about a lot of overdevelopment on the road, and that we've lost control of the zoning through our own action. So all of these things will, continue to be just considered when you come back with whatever you have a right to come back with. A division by an A&R may theoretically be problematic, but nonetheless, this lovely house exists on this lot. And that's going to be something that is a practicality for the owner to deal with.
I don't want to make this meeting go longer because we got the big one coming up, but I think Emily would be happy with a real lot, 2-lot than an A&R.
And
So, for one.
and to that point, I think we've had town council in this numerous times.
Yeah.
And I just say this to Water and Land Council, but lawyer up and bring us to court and challenge it.
Yeah.
I hate to say this right now, it's all fictitious. And it's one opinion against another opinion, and town council has advised us we're reading this properly. So,
And that's who we brought to the dance.
So,
Right.
so to go back to, I don't want to bring up the original area that was hit with the real lot, but it was Gray Ave and right? So Daffodil, but not Daffodil, Evergreen. So had a few of them. So now that we've shifted the things around, we went from restricting, then all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, we wanted to not restrict and get the deed restriction for the year-round ownership. Now we have the ADU, and now we want less again. I love this. It's a continuous figure eight all the time, which is fine. That's the way Nantucket is. But I like to be really open about that. This real lot subdivision is good for the outcome, what it looks like. It doesn't look ugly with 2 paved roads next to each other or stuff that just doesn't fit small neighborhoods. It looks like driveways, which is what we want.
Airport runways.
However, Dan, for the applicant's benefit, for the look of the neighborhood's benefit, I would rather see 2 lots in the configuration that you have, except 2, than an A&R, which is gonna be 2 skinny long lots. And that house isn't gonna fit correctly.
That's right.
And it'll have to get torn down. I mean, it's just, we just continue to fight against ourselves, whether it's some other issue with renting or some other issue with something else. And it's like, this is a way to do a better job to redevelop existing lots that were done essentially just, as I said earlier, just on weekends. Like, you just built houses and no one cared. But no one was thinking about underlying zoning. And that's the truth. So we're trying to jiggle it a little, maybe do some restricting. They're still gonna have 40% ground cover. They can build a big primary dwelling, but they're not gonna be able to have 3 dwellings on a lot if you do an A&R. So that's what the neighbors need to understand. So I'm all done with this one.
All right,
Talking
I
about
would entertain a motion to continue till October 20th.
Second. Oh, I'll make that motion. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Nat, seconded by Hillary. Nat.
Aye.
Hillary.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. All right, on to the final application of the
Thank you.
day.
For listening.
Thank you, guys. Joe Manning, 11 Pinecrest Drive, continue with the Dan Malloy Show.
God.
It's a great night. Again, Dan Malloy for the applicant, Joe Manning. So I'll make this quick. I understand there's a lot of people here that want to speak, so I'll make this a quick presentation. So it's a property on Pinecrest, 11 Route 11. In this case, the property has access, I don't want to say, well, it fronts upon 2 different ways, not frontage necessarily, but it has access to 2 different streets. The applicant is requesting an AR approval required subdivision for 8 residential lots. The property is zoned R5 again for 5,000 square foot zoning. Obviously, all lots are over 5,000 square feet. We are asking for some waivers to reduce the roadway requirements. I can get into some of those. I understand there's obviously concerns, a lot of questions on some of this, so I'm expecting, it's a quick introduction, I'm expecting to make a quick presentation, get a lot of feedback, and more than likely request a continuance. So I'm not expecting to go back and forth and accomplish a lot. So we do have water and sewer available. There are, again, no environmental concerns in terms of wetlands, endangered species, none of that is here. Access will be provided through Mary Ann. The existing property has 2 dwellings on it. It's a dwelling now with, I believe, a garage apartment. The existing access is on Pinecrest. We may continue one of the dwellings or one of the lots on Pinecrest because they have access to utilize it right now. However, from a frontage standpoint, we have to utilize Mary Ann because Pinecrest is only an easement. There may be some future thing later on where Pinecrest becomes something else, but I'm not going to touch that because it's very, very far away if it ever happens. So again, an 8-lot definitive approval required subdivision, R5, 5,000 square foot requirements. The lot's 45,000 square feet, almost 46,000. So from a zoning density standpoint, it is meeting the criteria. That is the application. I already know there's a lot of concerns. I won't go into much more detail, and I'd just like to open up to comments from the board and the public.
Good, good delivery.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
All right, board members. Nat?
You want to go first,
Sign.
Joe? Am I signing that bad tonight?
It's all you, buddy.
I'm trying to shut my mic off when I sign. All right. So, Dan, thank you for being here. You've stepped in it a little bit because of all the past stuff. We're going to bring up a whole different past of issues here. This is registered land, number 1. Number 2, we've got an easement road that you can't get frontage off of, which I know the people in the room that know this, but not other people don't know this. We have an agreement with the owners to finally get rid of the pork chops and figure out how to distribute the land and allow one division, et cetera, all that. But we have not had an application since that process started, like 4 years ago or more, where all of a sudden we have one of the lots that's abutting another road come in as if none of these things are going on. That's when I first saw this, I said, oh God, well, all the other things we're trying to get done, I don't want that to be lost in all this. So getting as much as you can out of R5, obviously, and coming in from Mary Ann it's the only way you can do it, because you can't do it from Pinecrest. But we got to figure out a way to reduce this a little bit and come up with a way to make a reasonable way to make this work. A straight A&R, we have to come back with, like we just talked about, other ways to get lots, what the ground cover will be, what the impacts will be, that kind of thing, versus getting restrictions on all these lots, obviously, would be the biggest thing, not have full build out on all these lots, but at the same time, that year round and all that. But I'm talking more about the practicality of access, both sides, splitting it. Where is Ann's old house going? Where's the garage going? That kind of stuff. Like, what are we doing with this whole, there's got to be a couple of other options in here that have been looked at by you and the applicant. So that's it for me for right this second.
Joe?
I thought the staff raised many valid points that need to be worked through, and I think we should hear from the neighbors.
Okay. John?
I agree with Hillary. I think we should hear from the neighbors next, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. So yeah, I agree with Nat. I think that this is a lot, a whole lot for this neighborhood, and I'm concerned. 8 lots with 3 per lot. That's so. Yeah, I would look for ways to reduce this. The plan as it stands is just too much for me. So I'm going to go to the public unless any other board member
No,
or
so,
anyone has.
no, I totally agree. I think this would be small lot, less lots. I also think there should be a sidewalk. I think that there should also be like an extra 4 to 4 foot buffer of grass, and then push that easement back to for the utilities.
Yeah.
I think there has to be, this is just gonna cause too much impact, and, you know, Penn Lane's brought up Sachem's Path, and the lots are about the same size, but the structures are well designed, and I just feel like this is gonna be overdeveloped and too much. And I think there should be like height restrictions, I think there should be like a lot of different restrictions on this property. But I definitely think this should be at least 3 lots, like taken away and reduced how many structures are on per lot.
I think the roads need to be wider. The road
Yeah.
needs to be wider. It needs to be able to accommodate.
But I think the
on-street
sidewalk will help.
parking. It needs to have sidewalk all the way.
So there is
around.
no on-street parking.
So, yeah, but you all said it. So we're going to go to the people that have been waiting through this very short meeting we have had tonight.
You do have 2 hands online, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. We
I'm
have
gonna-
Dan Bailey and then Claire Ladder.
Okay, I'm going to take Claire. I'm going to go back and forth. So Claire first and then full house here. So Claire first and then we'll go from there.
Hi, Claire Ladder here, 7 Marianne Drive. I'm sure you all read my letter, but I am very concerned. Marianne Drive is a private road that already is overcrowded with cars. It is an extremely small road. It was recently paved probably 3 years ago at the cost of the Marianne Drive residents, and it's already destroyed. I just cannot fathom this amount of people and cars that will be trying to access this tiny side street. It's very off-putting to me that somebody thinks that they should benefit from this much while it's impacting a whole neighborhood and town. I'm not sure what else I can say about this, but I agree with the board that this is way too much for this area. And that if you did a traffic study, you would find that barely 1 car can fit down this road, let alone a 2-way street, let alone if there's an emergency. And I think that's all I have to say about that. So thank you for your time, board, and I hope you consider to decline this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen Iller, 7 Pinecrest Drive. So we are the physical neighbors of this proposal, and we emphatically oppose, and we really, we love Joe Manning, so it's nothing personal, but this is completely uncharacteristic of the neighborhood and would change the dynamics wholly. So to piggyback on what Claire just said, it will impact 2 neighborhoods significantly, not just 1, but 2. And to bring back what Nat said, I'm also a trustee of the homeowners association. And when we were having these discussions about the 1 subdivision, that was with talking about subdividing the front lots, not the front pork chop lots, not the proper lots. And we were working on this with Andrew because as a whole, our neighborhood wants to maintain what we have now. People love to walk in our neighborhood. It's a 1-way quiet road easement. I think this is an atrocious plan, honestly. And that 1 subdivision was intended for those front pork chop lots, not the proper lots that we all, and I can say that our neighborhood agreed to that. So I really look for you guys to review this plan carefully. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Julie Jordan, also a direct abutter to this proposed development. I think that the 6 waivers that are requested should be a red flag, and I align with Emily on this because I feel like that they're in place, all those rules are in place for our public safety, and to totally disregard that many of them in the name of egregious development on the backs of the abutters who maintain the road that will be used to access this is totally inappropriate. And as much as I understand the problems with, you know, the regulations with the state and things like that, and even, you know, explaining that this is how it's gonna be with the RC2 under our development and the way that it was planned before, I think is also not helpful. And I think as a board, you should really work with the applicant and the abutters to come up with a good solution when these situations come up with the overdevelopment. And I would really like to see you deny this and come up with a solution to better serve the housing needs and the development of our island. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dan Bailey?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Dan.
Okay, hold on a second here. I'm trying to get the video, but it doesn't want to come. So anyway, you don't need that. Dan Bailey, I am a land use attorney at Pierce Atwood in Boston. I frequently appear in Nantucket, though more typically with the Conservation Commission in recent years. You know, I'm representing Art Gasparo, who is also a close neighbor on Mary Ann Drive. Just 2 things I want to say. One is just to kind of echo the comments we've already heard about this is too much for this particular site. There are a lot of waivers that have been asked for, but you know, I want to point out, and I know the board knows this, that while there are a bunch of waivers for the subdivision road, they're by proposing access via Mary Ann Drive, they're also asking for de facto waivers from a private road that is not built to anywhere near Nantucket subdivision standards. It's a narrow, as we've heard, narrow and busy and, you know, hard to access road. The other thing, and it was interesting to hear Mr. Lowell say this, because, you know, I'm not local, you know, so I don't know this, but, you know, there's a lot going on here. And when I was reviewing these plans, I looked and I said, I don't understand. Why does this particular property have access from Mary Ann Drive, proposing access for a subdivision road? When the lot was created, the access, and it was on Mr. Malloy's first plan, was via Old South Road. The frontage was via Old South Road, and the access was via Pinecrest. That tells me that there's an issue with access via Mary Ann. Now, we're looking into that. I haven't had enough time to look at it, but I think the board knows, and I know boards never like to get into these title issues, and that's understandable because that's not your expertise. But a proponent has the burden of demonstrating that they have adequate property rights to do what they are proposing. And so I would say to the board, you should require the applicant to do so in this particular case and to demonstrate why he has rights to use Mary Ann Drive for a 9-lot subdivision. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Ryder.
Hello, Brian Ryder from Ryder Electric. I own 4 lots on Mary Ann Drive. Been there for over 25 years. I run my company out of it, and we house over 20 people on the 4 lots. I'm proud to say we have over 30 parking spots on my property. There's not even one car parked on the road for anything we do. I look at this subdivision, I see 8 building lots, which I would associate 20 cars to, maybe more, and I wonder where they would park. I've seen for 25 years there be issues with people parking on the road because there's nowhere for them to park on their property. So it's already a problem, as people have mentioned, with getting emergency vehicles down the road. And I just see this increasing the problem, a lot. So I would ask that this get denied. I would see that, I think the same problem could occur even if there were 4 lots there, because there's just not enough parking there's no road parking, and the town does not monitor the streets. Over the years, I've asked the police to have cars moved off my own property or in front of my driveway where we can't get in, and they say it's a private road, they can't police it. So I don't see how this would ever work on the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone online?
No hands are up online.
Emily?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden with the Nantucket Land and Water Council. Just to echo some of the concerns, again, about the number of waivers that are being requested for this roadway lot and the density that that allows in this particular location. I think Attorney Bailey raises an interesting and good question about rights of access off Marianne. And I guess I would be interested in understanding how many lots would be allowed on this property without the roadway waivers that are being requested, just as an interesting starting point for consideration of the inappropriate size for a development here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Arthur Gasparo. Just following up, echoing the comments you've already heard, I appreciate the sentiment of the board, the willingness of the applicant to come back and relook at this. I think this is to speak specific to the subdivision rules and regulations. It should be a fully compliant subdivision. There's really no reason for reducing the layout from 40 feet to 20 feet. Whether they want to try a rural road alternative or something else within a fully complying layout, I don't think that really works here, but I still think that the layout itself should include the roundings that are needed and include the full width of the cul-de-sac and the road layout. Again, just to reiterate, in case it wasn't clear, this road is not plowed. There's no drainage. Marianne is extremely substandard. And the pavement is because, along with Mr. Ryder, I've also been there 25 years, and the Jordans, and we shared the cost ourselves. There's no formal homeowners association. We have no luck with any kind of, as again, echo Mr. Ryder, any kind of enforcement. My concerns, as I put in the letter, are also specific, I think, under the board's purview of life safety. To be able to access this, can a fire truck get down this road with the parking that's happening? That can't be moved, and then make the turn into this subdivision. I think that has to be demonstrated with the plans that come back to you if there's going to be a road, and then you can get into perhaps the restrictions. And I don't necessarily see them as restrictions, as conditions under a approval required subdivision. I hear a lot about it being restrictions, but I see it as a conditioned approval. You come in and you ask for this, and then you are issued the permit from the board that says these are the conditions of this approval. They're not necessarily all restrictions, and those are there to protect the public. And I think that's what we really need to get at here. And it's not necessarily about waivers. So again, and I think the other thing to consider here is Hinsdale Road. So all this traffic, we talk about Marianne, it's either going to come out Marianne or Hinsdale. So if they are going to do it, are we going to talk about some improvements there to divide, or are we going to require a traffic study depending on the amount of lots? Hinsdale could certainly benefit. And then both of those connect to Old South Road and Novadier Farm Road. As I put in the letter, failed levels of service. I don't think I have to tell any of you that, adding additional traffic to those roads is, especially if it's as a result of the granting of waivers by this board, should be taken very seriously. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Maybe we should have a building cap on these roads. No more building.
So I just think it's important here for the abutters to understand that at this point, nothing's going to get denied. In the end, something is going to happen here. If what we do here fails, it won't stop the applicant from coming back and getting 4 unrestricted A&R lots. So I think a better outcome would be for everybody to work together and find an acceptable place that we can be here. And the best place for that to happen is inside of a conditioned permit, where we still have control. So I just want to say that for the future, this permit could go on, this process could go on for a while, and the way it sounds, it probably will. But I think that not only the applicant, but the abutters should really think really long and hard about where is the happy place and can we find it? And in the end, if we fail at doing that here, then I promise you that someone will come back and put in 4 lots and we won't have any control over what they do there.
Tom Klinger. I'm the original first house in Pinecrest. Been there for almost 40 years. And the whole idea of this development was to keep it the way it is. Single-family dwellings, maybe a secondary dwelling if you needed one, but definitely not 8, 9, or any more lots. Pinecrest Drive, as you know, is a private way. We paid for the entire thing to be paved. The road is pretty much substandard at this point inside the development, as well as the road on Marianne Drive. And if you've ever been to Hinsdale, that's a complete nightmare. So I don't know where everyone lives, but I know one thing. You don't live off of Old South Road. You want to talk about horrendous traffic, nightmare. Emergency vehicle access, which I happen to know a lot about, and what could happen in the dwellings that will be built on those properties, and the number of people that will be living in each dwelling. If you think a 2-bedroom house houses 4 people, you need to re-educate yourself. I have another property right next to me. It was subdivided. 2 dwellings on a 5,000 square foot piece of property. There are probably 25 people living in those dwellings. There are probably another 15 cars on Hinsdale Road behind my house. It's completely out of control, and you people have the ability to fix it. So please fix it.
Thank you. John, was your hand up?
No.
Okay.
Hi, Kyle Snell here. I've been a resident of Pinecrest for 30 years. I'm on I'm a trustee of the Homeowners Association. I just want to add to all the concerns that are being, spoken here. I just think the impact is way too much, and just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Anybody else?
Hi, Ron LaFave from 26 Lovers Lane, but I also have a residence for my employees on 7.5 Marianne, and wanted to reiterate what some of my neighbors were saying, especially Art and Tommy Klinger that was talking about. Not opposed to Joe Manning developing it, but the amount of houses and the size of the lots are very concerning, as stated. The overcrowding on the streets by cars. I have all my employees, wherever, park in the lot. I put rocks up along the front of my property because people would park along the side. I'd come back and the rocks would be moved. So that is an apparent problem. Obviously, we all know Old South Road and Novadier Farm Road are a nightmare. They are now, I live on Lovers Lane, they are now paving Lovers Lane to offset all the traffic that is backed up on Old South Road is now going to be flying down Lovers Lane. Nice quiet lane, used to be. Adding another 20, 30 cars, they're going to be coming down Old South Road. It's going to affect me everywhere, us everywhere. The overbuilding and developing of the Old South area is becoming a problem. We almost need 4 lanes now on Old South Road because the traffic is ridiculous. It takes me 15 minutes to go from the corner of Old South and Lovers Lane to get to the Rotary in the morning. People are walking faster than I can drive. It's a continuous problem, will continue to grow with this development. I'm not opposed to putting houses up there, but I am opposed to the amount of housing in the tight area and the parking that goes on and the traffic. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Nobody up there?
Nobody up there? Anybody else before we continue this?
If I could just
Yep.
get a general clarity on 2 things. I don't need clarity and density, that's been spoken for. That there's a lot of question on access, improvements, those type of things. So the application right now, we already have a sidewalk that was asked for at the preliminary meetings. We are providing a sidewalk. What I'm trying to get a general feel for is, from an infrastructure standpoint, if there's certain things that you're more inclined to be interested in. I understand there's a parking issue on Marianne Drive. I don't have a solution for that necessarily, but I understand there's a problem. Marianne is 20 feet wide, roughly, plus or minus paved. I understand we want our interior road to get bigger. As an example, Maple Lane, which we just finished, that has vertical granite on each side, that's 18 feet inside. 8, 9 lots, no restrictions. So just to give something in context of what we'd probably look to change to. So not that this is fixed, just have a general consensus. Obviously a sidewalk. We're still doing Cape Cod berms. This isn't a granite curbing necessarily area. So we're looking at a paved road, Cape Cod berms. My impression would be an 18-foot wide road, maybe 20. I think 20 might be excessive, but I'm not asking you to commit to something, just to get a general feel, so when we're coming back with something in a different direction, if there's certain, obviously, I think if some of the staff conditions, if we damage Marianne in terms of construction, we should own that problem. We should be fixing it. Should we make some improvements in Marianne? Possibly. The question is to what extent. Obviously, work with all the homeowners and trying to see if we can help with other improvements. We'll take a look at Hinsdale, see if that's something that makes sense for us to touch or not. I'm just trying to hear if there's any specific big picture things aside from density that you want us to look at.
And my concern with this is whatever level it's at, if it were to be approved, is that every vehicle fits in that development. And if that takes on-street parking to do, then that's what needs to happen. I don't think that if this gets to the point of approval, that there should be one more car parked on Marianne Way.
Yeah, so I would fully expect on our side of things would have an HOA. That would be part of any approval. One of the conditions of that HOA would be no parking along there. So we would at least internally have the ability to police ourselves. We couldn't stop.
But you have to have the places for them to park, and so
And
that.
have parking available, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's- I understand the situation, I was expecting.
And I think that our bylaw, as far as parking, especially in this area, is woefully inadequate. So I think you're gonna need to have additional parking. Am I off base?
No, you're right. I add to what Dave just said, Dan. Okay, I'm gonna say something I haven't said yet. At any of these old places that are redeveloping, just because it was done wrong forever doesn't mean we do it wrong with more than one or two houses that, you know, that are being built by right. See, this is the catch to this, is this is opening up all the things that everybody's dealing with every day, but when one house gets built one at a time, no one says a word. Okay, but they're adding too. But that's, doesn't come before us, it's just an automatic building permit. Having all the cars in that property, like Satcham's, when that was first planned, there was no on-street parking. People don't know that, that's true. There is now, and that got changed before it got built. That would have been another Cynthia or whatever, where they built without any on-street parking, which is, it's just the way we did things here. You know, we had parking before cars were here. Now, then when the cars got here, we forgot to put the parking in. I mean, it's pretty amazing, but it's kind of true in some ways. But this, like Dave said, if this gets to the approval level stage and acceptable level, we got to have the cars inside the development. Because there has to be enough room for them, or else we're not bettering the situation as far as the stuff that's wrong right now. As far as improvements, we've talked about these roads, Pine Tree, this road, and Hinsdale for years, about taking them. Should it be betterments? What percentage? Just like we talked about Boulevard Road. Same exact conversations have been happening over time. I can tell you, if those roads were going to get paved 20 years ago, people would have been mad. They wouldn't have wanted it to be a cut-through. Now we're talking about how bad the roads are. So it's like we kind of change our tune depending upon what time, what year it is and all that. Bottom line, one applicant shouldn't be improving something that's been there for 40 years like that. But should they contribute to something in the future, that could be put into a condition that if and when the town decides to come up with a plan to do some sort of pavement plan, improvement plan through town, through an override plus betterments, that type of thing, like what's happened out in Boulevard Roads, that would be in the condition for this subdivision. You know, but you can't just say, well, you got to pave Hinsdale because of this. But an improvement to Mary Ann, that's not totally off the table in my mind. But I'm assuming that the applicant is trying to provide year-round housing with, you know, with deed restrictions. That, you can't underestimate the need for that. This isn't going to be Gray Avenue with swimming pools and whatever. Like, this shouldn't be. It should be what it is today, but better. So that's how I'm looking at it. But we definitely need to come back with something, not necessarily a 40-foot wide layout, but on-street parking on one side, berms, trees, something, you know. Some of the waivers, people don't want some of the things that are in the subdivision rules and regs. But as far as the width and on-street and sidewalk, that kind of thing, I mean, you should try to have something like that. Definitely have on-street parking, because on-site parking is not going to be enough. Or it'll look like a parking lot every house, you know, or every lot. Joe, what are we doing?
Yeah, John also has.
John?
Hand up? John.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Malloy. I'm not going to, repeat the issues of density and parking how many waivers at that. What I would say is, Dan, you're asking us, for some direction. I would really encourage you to talk more again with the neighbors, because what I heard tonight was specifics, but I also heard people talking about how this is going to change the nature of their neighborhood if this was to go ahead. And I think you ought to talk more to them. This is not sort of black and white, but you ought to talk to them more about, well, okay, what is it about the neighborhood then? What is it that they would like you to do to lessen the impact on what is their neighborhood? And I'd really encourage you to do a lot of that, actually. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're talking about like, should there be a sidewalk or what kind of curbs? I mean, we're so far away from that level of detail. I mean, the question here in the staff report is, do you even have the right to access Marianne Drive? Do you have the right to access this, the easement drive? I think there's just a fundamental question of what kind of subdivision at what scale is even legal? And I'm just dumbfounded that this came to this board as a preliminary plan and was approved, because it really sets a precedent that sort of stuff is okay. I don't think it's okay. I don't see how you can have this is like a fantasy that is not remotely possible. So I would like to see the access question, do you have the title? Dan Bailey brought that up. I'd like to have a real answer to that. Access is the number one question here. Secondly, if you followed our subdivision regulations, which until we change them are our regulations, and waivers can only be granted when there's a clear public benefit to granting the waiver. Sometimes there is a public benefit because we don't want things to look like we have a runway going down the street. But if there's no public benefit, we shouldn't be granting the waiver. So what would this proposed subdivision, assuming you can have any kind of access, look like if you didn't ask for all these waivers? I think that is, that should be the starting point. And then you ask for additional density, because we do want to get some more housing in, and we do want to get some roads upgraded, and we can trade that off. But I don't want to start with something that is like totally unacceptable, and really, I'm ashamed of this plan, like we shouldn't be looking at this plan. So I'd like to get something that is a more reasonable starting point, and I'd like that to actually be the baseline of working with this planning board.
I have a question for staff. Yeah. Through the chair, Leslie and Megan. So as far as the land court, as far as the registered land not being, the question about access, not an individual house on Marianne, but a subdivision off Marianne, that's what this is. It's not the same as everything else that's out there. You got to look at how many lots in Pinecrest have abut Marianne as far as future of this. This isn't going to be the only time this happens, or it potentially isn't. I know that's what Dan is talking about, but Dan Bailey's talking about. But we have to, other than what Hillary's bringing that up, but I'm saying as far as all that stuff could end up taking years to figure out. Like, this isn't going to be like somebody's going to answer this question tomorrow. So this is the first time anything like this has happened with land that's part of Pinecrest that's abutting the other side. So has there been anything else like this on Hinsdale?
There have been other lots that were divided through A&R, but not through an AR subdivision.
On the end of this.
Okay. So those are the kind of, the legal questions have to be answered then. Unfortunately, that's the truth. It's just, looking at this as just a plain old subdivision off of a road, this isn't just a regular road. And obviously Pinecrest is really not a regular road, but this isn't either, potentially. We have to find that out. So before, maybe, I don't know if we can do that.
Well, it's like Michelle Kelman, she's
I
at the
mean,
end of the
she-
road, and
yeah.
she divided that, and she's at A&R, and she's got 2 lots that are on Marianne.
Yeah,
And it's
and
not-
that is different than an AR, obviously.
Right.
And that's what, you know,
It's not our job as a board to decide whether they have legal access.
Right.
I'm
I
gonna
know.
let staff
I know.
go, take this.
Yeah, so it's really not the proper place for the planning board to weigh in on whether or not they have legal rights to use the road. That's something that the land court or the superior court judge would decide. This has come up in the past. I specifically remember on the Pippin's Way subdivision on Gardner. The question came up.
Gardner
And the
Road.
planning board said, you know, the applicant has represented that they have rights to use it, and that's all that we're basing our decision on. And if the neighbors and other people want to appeal that, then that's something that a judge can decide.
Anyone else? For now, you're good.
No, I think that, you know, you have to look at the whole
No, I
thing, and
agree.
in case it does come back, he's got our comments, so that's why.
I agree.
You have to look at it, the whole
And in
application in totality.
some ways, I disagree with Hillary that, you know, this is the process, right?
Yeah.
And we see it with every application. They come with guns a-blazing, and slowly but surely, we start eating away at it. Dan's done it 100 times, you know, so hopefully we're gonna get someplace where the abutters feel more comfortable, we as a board feel more comfortable. And if we don't, then we don't. But this is the way the process works, for better or worse.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I'm just reading the staff report. It says, the board to discuss the proposed access from Marianne Drive and clarify whether any lots are intended to access Pinecrest Drive. Is the answer no? No lots are,
Well, currently the property is accessed from Mary Ann. So I would
Right.
expect that they would retain the ability,
Pinecrest.
Pinecrest. So I would anticipate that one of the lots could continue to access Pinecrest.
so the answer is yes.
Yes,
Some
one lot
lots,
could
yeah.
continue. They're
So-
doing it
Well,
today,
you
so
have-
that-
Hillary?
You have 2
But
lots.
it says, while the site is currently accessed from Pine, staff notes that the drive is not a public or private way, but it's a driveway easement, which raises questions regarding the applicant's rights to establish additional access points. What are the questions regarding the applicant's rights to establish additional access points?
I wrote that, and I mean, there's currently one access point, so I'm questioning, is there more? It's an easement as it currently stands.
I
That
see.
would be an agreement between the property owner and
Right.
the HOA or trust or whatever it is, so
So the
it's
two
unknown to me.
lots-
Do they
the
have
two-
access?
Okay, so the two lots,
alternative
lots
access?
4 and 5, do they, your question is, do they have a right to access Pinecrest?
Correct. More so than the current access that exists.
Yeah.
I don't have any information on that that could tell me one way or another.
Okay, thank you.
No, I think they might have 2, but that's, right now, they only have this one.
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion to continue this to October 20th.
You have one?
Oh, I do
hand up?
have one online, okay. What do we got? Oh, sorry. Welcome back, Dan. Dan Bailey, that is. Oh, he disappeared now. Back and forth is killing my neck.
Dan, you should be able to unmute
Yeah,
now.
I had to unmute myself. Sorry about that. I represented the applicant in the subdivision, the Pippin's Way subdivision, along with Mr. Malloy as the engineer. It was when I got to know Mr. Lowell pretty well. And what we did, because there were people opposed to that subdivision, we submitted to the board an easement, a registered, land court easement that gave my client very specific rights over Gardner Road to upgrade that road to provide access to the subdivision. So we overcame and answered the issue about whether there was any question. Look, I get it that these are always sort of difficult title issues, but what the legal rules say is that the applicant has to present some level of prima facie evidence that they have the right to use the access road for the subdivision. Our argument here is that the applicant has not submitted that. They've submitted no evidence that they have the right to use Mary Ann for this subdivision. And in fact, the history suggests to us that they don't have that right. And I haven't had time to fully drill down on this. Believe me, I will. Because the frontage was originally on Old South, is on Old South for this lot, and the access is via Pinecrest. It seems very logical if the applicant had access via Mary Ann, that's what they would have used when this lot was created umpteen years ago. That's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
I have nothing new. I've got the notes. I understand.
Did he fall off or was he finished? Okay, thanks, Dan.
I have nothing new to offer. I heard all the comments. I've got the notes. Obviously, we'll follow through. We will be talking to the neighbors.
Yep.
Unless there's anything else, I'd obviously request continuance to October.
Great. So I would entertain
no
a motion
date,
to
but-
continue to October 20th.
Yeah.
So
But
moved.
you want to set a date, you want to have a, there's no date on this.
October
No, I
20th.
meant, you know how we have a date. so
Continue to October
Like
20th.
date out in December or whatever.
Oh,
We don't know.
action deadline?
Yeah,
Okay.
Whatever, that's fine.
It's predetermined, it's
Okay.
90 days.
Yeah.
from
Okay.
All right.
today.
Okay, so
So-
I'll make that motion to
I
continue.
think it's a second.
Oh,
Hillary
second.
made it
I'll
already.
second. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Right, you made that motion.
I did.
correct? Okay. Motion made by Hillary, seconded by Nat. Hillary,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe, John,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
It's an important part. And thank you, staff, for being rock
To
stars.
find out if
And, Mr. Chair, before you adjourn,
Yep.
there's some special meetings coming up, September 25th. That's to talk about short-term
Yep.
rental
Yep.
articles. And then you have a special meeting placeholder on October 16th, your regular planning board meetings on October 20th, and then a special meeting placeholder on October 30th.
Okay.
And additionally, you have a joint meeting September 30th that's not listed here with Planning Board, Select Board, Board of Health, and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Remember, that's a follow-up, and Judy Barrett will
Yeah.
be moderating that.
And where's that going to be held?
Yep, 30th September, I
25th of
believe
September, you got
it's
that?
Zoom only. Hold on.
What's the 30th again?
Trust me, I missed it. I'm gonna be in Europe, so that means I'll be up at 1 a.m. going, make it end.
We'll have to probably get back. I think it's Zoom only.
Oh, it is?
Oh,
What's
hold
Zoom
on, no,
only?
it's not.
Oh, wait.
It's
The
in
30th
the, it's
is
in the
in-
trailer.
The 30th is in person.
That's
It's
what I
in the
thought.
trailer.
That's what I thought.
It's going to be a packed room.
Yeah,
I won't be there.
I don't know, they have both, it looks like they have
For
both
you.
rooms reserved.
It's Mr. Chair's problem.
That'll be fine. So we have tight space.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, no? I would
Oh, you
entertain
were-
a motion
you were
from, did you
gabbing
make
away.
that motion?
I did make that motion.
Do I have a
Sorry.
second? Motion made by Joe, seconded by Nat. Joe?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
Hillary? Aye. John?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you for hanging in there, John, and the alternates online. Much appreciated.
Good night, everybody.